All right, friends, welcome to, first of all, happy Friday, Junior Friday Eve. Welcome to the Employee Experience and Business Performance Summit. I'm a people and culture executive with 2 decades of cross-industry experience in data-driven designs, inclusive initiatives, talent, and organizational development, which is why this subject and this summit, and thank you, Hacking HR, is so important and near to my heart personally, and hope to you all. I'm Dr. Frank Gonzalez, use pronouns he, him, his. I have the honor of serving as your moderator today. So welcome to day 3 with Frankie G, but you all are not here for me. Well, wonder how long I can keep that rhyme going. Let's bring up our panelists. You are here for them. And as we are bringing them forward, please, please, please give yourself a round of applause. Thank yourself for taking time out of your busy professional and personal day to develop and get your skill sets going. Listen to our panelists. I've got my notebook going because I know it's always going to be lit, and we have an amazing, amazing experience for you all today. So thank you, audience. Give a little love to our panelists. Use the emojis, interact, ask questions. I will do my best to be a good steward of our time, but also facilitate any questions that kind of come through. And so we've been doing a little bit of virtual dancing behind the scenes, and I really, really, really love it. So I told you why it's important to me. And in just a moment, we're going to start with Chris. We're going to go kind of clockwise based on who's here. But I'd love for you to just introduce yourself a little bit about, who you are, why you said yes to this subject. Obviously, it's got to be something that's very near and dear potentially to you personally and or professionally. And then kind of get us started already, get the wheels turning here and why we're here. But maybe talk to us a little bit about why people analytics or people data across the employee lifecycle, how you've used it to shape either employee experiences or decisions. So without further ado, my friends, again, welcome. Kristen, let's get started with you, my friend.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to be here and have this as a conversation topic. I think for years, human resources has been trying to prove that they add value, and data usage is so critical. And as we've gone through the pandemic, as we've come out the other side, we know that personalized employee experience is absolutely something that is so critical to employees as we understand different generations, different backgrounds, all of the differences and the unique perspectives that we all bring into the workplace. We know not everybody wants the same thing. So, one of the things that I find really helpful is, as an organization, using all of the tools that we have to look at performance reviews, look at engagement scores, career aspirations, and 360 feedback in order to create individual performance and development plans. And that can give the employee a real clear idea of where they're going, how they get there, and help them build that commitment to move their career forward.
Whew, okay, we are coming out the gate firing. All
Coming
right.
in hot.
Thank you, Chris. Rosette, go ahead, my friend.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Bridget Wilder. I serve in the role of Chief People and Culture Officer at the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. I call myself a people detective because part of my job is to listen to what people say, but also to what they don't say to help them to find solutions to their concerns. And that's why people analytics is so important. And the most important word is people. We have to start with people. And then the analytics, that serves as the framework for telling that story, right? Because once we know about the people and we have the data and we're measuring that from the onboarding to their career journey till they make the decision whether they're going to decide to go or not, the data is going to tell the truth about their experience. So when we combine both the people and the analytics, we're telling a story about the employee experience that will help drive a culture where employees can thrive. So that's why it's so important that we not just think about the data, but tie it back to the people.
Okay, people detective. I love it. Can I borrow that one? Can I borrow that one? I'm gonna put that on t-shirt. You know, we talk about t-shirts. We'll put that on a t-shirt. I'm gonna put that on jackets. We're gonna market that one. I love that. Thank you, my friend. Ashley.
Hey, I'm so happy and really grateful to be with everyone today. I'm really looking forward to the panel and speaking with all of our different co-hosts. And Frankie, thank you so much for the good introductions here this morning and the energy. I needed it to work out my nerves a little. I am and have been fortunate to kind of shepherd a center of excellence for employee experience globally for my organization in the last 3 years. And when I think about people analytics, to me, it's kind of the great translation tool, right? It's how those of us in human resources can really work with our partners in the business to say, we're all here working for the same thing, right? These are the data points that we bring to the table that we can demonstrate, and how we can really say, right, people are our business. You know, we're not all out here just kind of making tchotchkes and that becomes kind of our business, right? It's a matter of really focusing on our people. And I've been probably most proud of implementing consistent engagement retention factors across the employee life cycle. So surveying people at the time of joining, doing stay interviews, and then obviously exit surveys, but having a consistent through thread of various different factors. And what I've learned in that, right, one of our top responses is meaningful work comes back as a top reason that people join, that people stay. If they're not feeling that they may leave, right? Those are high contributing factors for us. And so I was able to kind of lean into that data with my operations partners and be able to say, right, the more we can connect what the work is that people do to our clients, to our proposition, right? The more that you all can connect the work that they do, we're going to have a net positive benefit across the business.
Okay, and did you use the word shepherd? I like that. I like that. Yeah, you definitely have to.
That way. I think
I
that's
love it. No, I
sure.
almost forget what my role is. So apologies, audience. But sometimes I'm taking notes. I'm like, oh, wait, hold on. I'm also helping moderate and shepherd this panel. I really like what you were talking about. Well, what everyone is talking about. But something you said reminded me of the 3 Ps. So there's one thing about pay. There's another one about perks. Have unlimited this, and we got this. We got gym membership. We got this. But really, this meaningful purpose. Right? We land in jobs sometimes by accident or referral, or maybe I wanted to do this, and we change sometimes. But that purpose, we all want to contribute something, and I really love what you said there. So thank you, Purposeful Shepherd. I will call you, my friend. Thank you, Suzanne.
Thank you so much, Frank. And hello, everyone. I'm seeing Philippines, Kenya, Arizona, Nigeria in the chat. So hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. It's great to be on the panel and couldn't agree with you more on purpose. My personal belief is that folks don't come to work for the other P's, the pay, the perks, the massage chairs, you name it. People come to work to do amazing things in a team that they didn't think possible. And when you get that right, you're golden. You're doing great things. I can't be as eloquent as my other panelists on some of the personal things they covered. The thing that hasn't come up yet, which I think is super important, is turning turning intuition into insights, given demonstrable value and business outcomes. This takes us away from we kind of know it, we're people professionals, or you're the happy team. Well, no, we're not. We're actually the team that drives amazing value. People are probably one of the highest costs on your balance sheet. So get it right, do it right, give them an amazing experience and watch them deliver amazing results. So for me, it's all about the business outcome.
Bam. I love it. The intuition piece of it is extremely valuable. There's so much research on you will get what you project.
Yep.
Right. And this intuition, feelings, thoughts, feelings, behaviors can absolutely be measured.
Yep.
They can. And if we're not locked, then how do we show up for each other? Whether you are an end user or dealing with a customer up front, or you're leading a team that does, or you're shepherding a team, or a detective of a team or organization. And really at this site here, regardless, it projects down. In organizational development, there is a formula to that. Personality of your most senior leader, or a functional leader, or leader of an actual area, team, plus the values, plus the accepted behaviors of your team organization is really the output. And so if we don't get it right, as you said, things that experience is not that intuition, right? Those feelings will absolutely be projected all the way down to the balance sheet, but also absolutely to the people experiences, right? So thank you, my friend, and welcome. Shireen, tell us, my friend, tell us a bit about yourself and why you said yes.
Hi, Frank. Hi. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure joining all of you today morning. And I think we all have spoken so very well in terms of the data analytics and how it affects the EX decision. So my job here, I work for a minority women-owned enterprise. And I work directly with the CEO. I look after the North America and the Asia offices. So because I work directly with him, I know whatever decisions he has to take will need a lot of data. He needs that data to make a decision, to derive the organization objectives. So most of the times what I've observed is that we get lost in the data. And it's very important that we as HR derive the objective and the objectivities out of it, like the primary objective and what could be the sub objectives for that primary objective. And that makes it very easier to go to the ground level, because that's where everything starts, right? The churning is happening at the ground level, at the grassroots level. That's where the data is happening, right? And at one end, there is this there is this vision, there is this business objective, there is the CEO is talking about numbers, financial numbers, the business growth. So what is happening at the bottom, at the ground level, and what is happening at the top level? We are the people who are in between. So bridging that data with the business objectives as well as the employee objectives certainly makes sense. That's what I believe. Thank you.
Thank you, my friend. And it reminded me, and I don't know about the audience, it reminded me of going back to what Bridget was saying, is that kind of framework. And that helps those that are, now I'm going to come at it a whole different way. There's left brain and there's right brain folks. And Suzanne, that's a little bit of that intuition as well. We don't know. I don't know if you're left brain or right brain. Sometimes I can take a really good guess. And left brain is more, analytics, project management, and just putting things in order. It's not that I'm mechanical or robotic. That's just how I operate first. And then comes the right side. And some of us are more right side brain, which we're more about the people, the purpose, like that feeling. And once I build that, then I can bring in that kind of project management. And Sharang, what you were talking about is that framework, starting with this purpose or objective, and then the data can hopefully influence that as acceptance criteria, as you would say in Lean Six Sigma or other types of project management processes, right? And so that's really, really valuable to put all this experience into digestible, palatable things for leaders. If they're used to seeing maybe financial statements only, right? To bring these things up. So I'd love to stay with you, and we're gonna kind of go now counterclockwise. Chivalry's not dead, so thank you. We'll start with you, and I'd love to just kind of really now, this is the kind of the meat of it, the main things right here. Unpack a little bit for us, the real role of data and personalizing that experience. You talked about utilizing it for the leader. They need the leader. You need to provide that. And maybe also motivating leadership, right? That may seem a bit unsupportive with that. What is your approach, my friend? I'm at you, Sharang.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got lost. I was still listening to you. All right. I have my coffee with me, but I guess I need a couple of sips in between. Anyways, so all of us here, we carry so much experience, last 2 decades, 3 decades. If we look at one objective that we did 20 years back, 10 years back, 15 years back, that objective has evolved. To me, onboarding 20 years back was just saying, hi, welcome to the organization. Hope you have a good day. And then you help them meet their buddy or maybe their manager, and then, off you are, right? But today the experience has changed. Today, it is actually an experience. It goes beyond just onboarding. So we develop data. We develop data from the time they enter to the time they walk out of the office, and continue that data for another week, 2 weeks, to understand what the experience went through. So, and in my observation, in one of the startup companies that I work with, this data actually helped us to bring down the attrition, the first week of attrition, when everyone is very tentative. They are like, did I make the right decision coming into this organization? Am I in the right role? Have I the right manager? So the entire ecosystem has to become cohesive. And then that's where the data helps. So the data can then help to align the manager. He knows what he has to do in the next week or 2 weeks. The people in the team know. The HR knows what they have to do. It's not just, okay, welcome to the organization and you are off. You're not seen another maybe for a month, 2 months. So onboarding, just if I look at that one experience, it in itself has evolved. There is so much data that keeps on happening about an employee experience, and that derive the decisions as we go up, because it refines how we want to hire people and how we want to take it ahead. So yeah, that I believe that's very, very important in today's scenario. Thank you.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you, my friend. And no apologetic language needed. You backed up and you rammed in there. So I love it, my friend. I took a lot of notes about the checking in, and yes, off you go. There's well-developed programs where they feel that experience, but then it tends to drop off. And then there's some that maybe are developing those things, but it's absolutely critical to keep checking in. There's a lot of affirmations, doing a quick pulse check on the comments here about data is only good if data sources are good as well. Yes, absolutely, Andrea. And hello, everyone. Yep, connecting and exchange ideas. One thing I will say, please connect with our panelists. If you utilize LinkedIn, connect with our panelists. Keep this connection and energy going post experience, and we're modeling that. Suzanne, you can build on some of those concepts, my friend.
Can you remind me what the question was, Frank? I want to make sure I'm answering the question accurately.
No, it's a lot about, so actually utilizing this data, right? And, examples that you may have utilized for the people experience, perhaps also getting additional buy-in from leaders who it may feel intuitively, utilizing your word, intuitively feel maybe unsupportive, or they're bought in, but maybe you need to take them to the next level. So whatever, kind of resonates with you, my friend.
Yeah. It's a great question. I could go all kinds of ways with this one. On the personalization piece, it's definitely all those points. Shrank started with onboarding, but all the points in the employee life cycle, and making that system, not a kind of rear view. You check in a year later and find out, Suzanne might leave because here's some data points that suggest she's at risk. But it's just like checking this as a system, and then having these little kind of micro insights as well. And when you listen to employees, make sure you take action. Don't ask people for feedback and engagement surveys and stuff and do nothing with it. That really pisses people off. It annoys me. We're all really busy, right? So if you're going to ask me for my feedback, do something about it. And critically, the chief people officer, I know this, tell people you're doing it, like join those dots at all hands, at meetings. It's like you said. So for example, I was the chief people officer at IPSI. Our folks were really interested in mental health, volunteerism, shutdowns all together. And we did that. We said, we did that. We helped you. We had a culture club, not just in the people team. Like all of the functions were part of this. Engagement isn't, an HR or a people team thing. It's everyone's job. So it's making sure that you have that big system piece, but the small system piece, like the recognition, the check-ins, how are you doing? How does Suzanne like to be recognized? It might not be public on a panel. It might be like, very quietly with Suzanne, but just making sure the big system piece works, but then these small like check-ins. And as I say, if you're going to listen, do something about it. Make sure it's all actionable, the insights.
Thank you, my friend. So much there. The survey fatigue, it's really inaction fatigue that you often hear about. Yeah. But I really love what you said, taking the next step over there and talk about it. What are you doing through a newsletter, a channel, or perhaps, as you're saying, a localized ambassador program? Right? It's a feedback loop that, okay, this is what I'm going to work on. And then hopefully this ambassador or wise person that's in charge of it's everybody's job culture, right? And how we show up in the experiences. Disseminate this, talk about it, get excited. It also perhaps gives that person a little bit more exposure if they're part of this ambassadorship, right? And everybody's linked. But it also gives you a communication channel to disseminate and cascade, continue to get that insights from. That's your strategic plan, but you also need part of that implementation and a little bit of that tweaks on execution. Want to call out a couple of things on the chat. Yes, absolutely. The stay surveys, as Suhail Vargas, I believe I'm saying that right. If not, I appreciate the correction. But a note of caution, complement intuition with independent research. Yes, absolutely. Because sometimes, depending on how long your workforce has been there and things, they may just be confirming assumptions, and it may not necessarily be true to that hypothesis that you're trying to gather of what's really the climate, the cultural climate going on. Thank you, Suzanne. Ashley, what would you build on, my friend?
So I feel like what Suzanne said that stuck out to me and just kind of made me think I'm going to go a different direction with my response here is sort of this idea of an ecosystem within any type of an organization, and how all of those things have to play together and then you're underpinned by the story, right, that your statistics or your analytics are telling. So if you're gathering those data points and you understand how that works within your overall ecosystem, it becomes a very natural thing. But what I thought about, right, is a couple of weeks ago, Hacking HR posted a poll online that was like something about how to get executive buy-in for employee experience. And it was sort of like multiple choice, right? Which, which options would you pick of why maybe employee experience is not gaining traction at the executive level? And I took the poll, but then the responses came back and I checked back, and it's something like 52% of people are responding, execs don't care. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, right? Like, yeah, they don't care, right? And then I sat back and I said, nope, I'm not thinking about it from their user experience within this ecosystem. I'm an executive. Employee experience is like one of those things that's just a million things in my hemisphere that I have to worry about, right? And so I think there is sometimes a natural inclination that employees are experiencing the things that we want them or intend them to experience. And so it's this very natural kind of outcome of our ecosystem, when really it's a myriad of people spending a lot of time and being very intentional behind the scenes around making sure that we really are summarizing and using data and using statistics and understanding what's happening in our organizations to be able to kind of curate this experience for people. And sometimes I think that can get a little bit lost in our HR profession as well, and how we can translate that to our execs.
You said something there that kind of stuck with me, and then there was actually a comment that followed up as well. But you also talked about the C-suite or executive or even senior leadership experience as well. Because if they're not experiencing it, right? Again, going back to my take on it would be, you get what you project, and making some assumptions, right? So that's amazing to think about. Okay, what are their experiences like? Because if you've ever been a member of senior leadership, the higher up you go, the less time you get in between everything. Your schedule is jam-packed and then you get faulted sometimes too, to be kind of the advocate here. You do get faulted from, okay, well, they're not here, so they don't care, right? But we have to think about that experience and how can we still showcase that care or presence for people that they need. And one of the questions that came in the comments was those key analytics that are critical for the business to understand. And I think you started to mention that. And Bridget, I'd like you, if you can expand on those. But I think it's whatever makes sense also for that business, right? So if whatever your end go-to-market products are, whatever organization, profit or nonprofit, it has to make sense. Those analytics also have to be tied to the organization and that purpose, as Sharang even talked about, that purpose, because this is how we show up. I want to contribute. I want, to show value, humanistically wise, right? As a human, I do want to contribute wholeheartedly. But Bridget, what would you say, my friend?
I want to add another layer to that, Frank. Before I got into HR, I was a software specialist. And so the benefit of me having that background coupled with HR, I like to first, when I was a coder, I wanted to understand their what and their why and when they needed it. So when I got into HR and I started working with senior leadership, I thought the same process. What is their what? Why do they need it? And when do they need it? Because then from an HR perspective, I then know what I need to focus on and what data I need to provide them so that they can tell the story that they need. Because we got lots of data, but if it's not telling the story of your stakeholder, what's the point of it, right? So when I create my strategic plan, it's based upon my CEO's strategic plan, because he said, these are the things that we need to accomplish. So then I have to figure out as his business partner, how does HR play into that? And then that determines what data and initiatives that we focus on. Because if it's not related to that, it's just something nice to do. And it takes us out from being a business partner. But if we can focus on what that senior leader needs and giving them the data to tell the story, we can also get the funding and the support we need to support the employee experience.
Whew, okay. Oh man, I'm feeling an experience right now. Okay, human detective, I got you. Christine, what would you add, my friend? Thank you.
Yeah, I might go. I'm going to go a different direction. So I love how we all have been adding to the conversation in perhaps a different way. But Brigitte, that tying back to the strategy, because we can have all the data in the world, but if it doesn't drive the business forward, it is irrelevant. Doesn't matter. And so being able to talk through the impact that people have on the strategy is really where the key to all of this lies. And I don't know how many people who are part of this conversation, or even how many people on the panel might be going through organizational transformation, large scale changes that are happening in the business. And if we purely look at change fatigue in the organization, if we purely look at the number of changes, the number of things that we're asking employees to do differently, adopt, technology changes, all of those things. And then we layer on top of that, the conversation around burnout, quiet quitting, job hugging, job jumping, rage applying. Like, I can't keep it all straight anymore. But then you start to have the conversation, and we talked a lot about this a couple of years ago. We talked about autonomy and employees getting to have the conversation about where do they work? How do they get their work done? As we've seen some of that autonomy be pulled back from employees, the data around some of that is also really important. Now, it's interesting, somebody in the comments mentioned design thinking. And when I think about that, I think about how do we also not only provide the business with the value and the systemic employee experience and the processes and the business things that we need to get done in order to be good HR partners. But then what is our role in helping individuals use their own personal data to really curate their own experience? How are they going to manage their time? How many meetings are they having per week? Who are they mainly interacting with? Where does their energy go? What is energizing them? When we talk about development and employee mobility, we talk about really how do they get energy? How do they learn? And helping them curate their own experience can be extremely powerful as well. But then it can also support all of the things we're trying to give to our C-suite, tying it back to the strategy. So there's a pull through there if we can engage our employees in the same types of conversations.
I love that. Kristen, do you mind if I pile on here, Frank? Because
absolutely.
It's so important. And when adding on to the strategy piece is the business outcome part. So like when you're talking to a CEO or another business leader, CFO, or, folks in your C-suite, like, yes, go with the data, but join the dots for them. What's the business outcome? Not the employee experience. It's the employee experience. How important it is. That's fine. Got that. But what does it do to the top and bottom line? And the data is there, and the data is irrefutable. So companies that do this well, that have a better employee experience, outperform their peers. So I pulled some data here from Gallup. So 21% higher profitability. So that goes right to your bottom line. It's not just fun stuff to have. Bottom line impact. 17% greater productivity. Reducing attrition by 40%. You know how much that costs people to hire, to train, when they attrit, the knowledge that you lose. And then take that out even further, 2.5 times customer satisfaction. So you're outperforming your peers. You will nail your CEO if you can say to him, we're going to do this better than our competitors. Or her, I should never say him, or then outperform the whole market. So 2 or 3 times shareholder return. So the data is irrefutable. So I think we do all these things behind the scenes, and I'm with you, Bridget. The story is much better than any of the data that I got, if you can bring that story to life. But if you could just break it down into those manageable business outcomes, here is what your employee experience drives. The data is irrefutable.
Ooh, okay, I no doubt, and a very active chat is getting what you all are projecting. As I was saying earlier, I can't believe we're at the last 5 minutes of our experience together, and I do want to say thank you, audience and participants, again for taking time for yourself. Take a moment to give a virtual applause for our panelists and sharing their insights. If something struck with you, please connect with them. Keep those conversations and connection and collective intellectual progress going, please. Ashley, I'm going to come to you, and then we can build on, right? But as we get our final takeaways, what is maybe one bold action or a mindset shift or some sort of challenge you want to leave our audience with when it comes to that employee experience?
So I thought about this question kind of coming in, and my mind kept going back to stay interviews, because I do think that we sort of lose the plot a little bit with people who stay in our organizations, who are retained, who are maybe a borderline culture carriers for us, and we're not talking to them and getting that feedback. Surveys are great, but actually moving further into more maybe spot interviewing. There was a panel I watched yesterday, and it's an activity that one of the panelists had done, was kind of sort of spot stay interviews. And I thought, wow, that is really clever, because you can get and collect that data. And I just really think if you investigate that type of an opportunity and see how you can deploy it within your organization, it can help you move some mountains that you may not otherwise be able to climb.
Thank you, my friend. Anyone else? Any order? Just build upon maybe what
I have a challenge for everyone. The challenge that I would say is 2 things you can do that'll be one big action for you if you can do it. 1, treat all of your direct reports as business owners. Empower them to own their responsibilities. And when they have ownership, you're going to have a whole nother level of performance. The second thing I want you to do as leaders is the first 10 minutes of your day, self-reflect and ask yourself, what can I do better today than I did yesterday? So when you have that ownership and that self-reflection, you're going to have behavior change. And that's going to tell a whole story that data couldn't even tell.
Oof. Thank you, my friend. Anyone else?
Yeah. First thing first, I think the discussion has been really good. Great, I would say. Mike, I don't know if I should take it as a challenge, but my concern with data has been that we can get everything out of the data, to derive business decisions and everything. What I feel as a concern and a challenge is the attribute of empathy, because when that is missed out, because like Bridget mentioned at the start of the discussion, thankfully we are still working with humans, right? And with so much of this AI and the chatbots, the chatbots have started entering our HR systems. The employees have to chat with a chatbot, right? There is no human behind it, right? And because there is no human, the chatbot is going to throw what is already pre-fitted into it. So then the empathy factor is lost. And I have seen it in my own experience. Employees feel burned out. They feel frustrated. And that is a very important aspect of an employee experience. They want to talk to a human. I have seen people entering their tickets that, some claim has not been refunded, just a common issue, right? And then the chatbot will again ask the person to go through that entire cycle. Have you done this? Have you done this? It's like a flow chart, and the person gets lost into it, and that can affect the person's even mental health and might lead to an exit. So that's one very important aspect. I believe we need to retain all the data we can get, but the decision has to be still very humanly empathy oriented, and that's where I think we will still continue to give those results as HR professionals. Thank you.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you. I know. Suzanne, Kristen, take us home.
for me, and I think I alluded to this before, is just listen. Listen, be open to listening. I read, and I'm sure you all do, every single comment on our engagement survey. Everyone. It might be with wine on a Friday night and stuff, but I go through all of them because I believe that a noisy organization is a healthy one. When you do things like all hands, like we do AMAs in real time, not scripted, not like, be honest, be open, be transparent, but just listen. Take a beat and listen. There's tons of data. Get past the noise and just listen to what your people are saying, and you will not go far wrong.
Thank you, my friend. Kristen, take us home.
Yeah, and I think really what we're saying is data and analytics is a piece of the puzzle. It is a piece of how you craft your story. It is a piece of how you create a business case, but it doesn't come from somewhere if you aren't doing the listening, if you're not having the empathy, if you are not engaging with your people in a positive way, not just around exit interviews, but around that future looking, what do you want to do? Why do you love it here conversation? And it's a piece, and we have to be really good at it in order to be effective, but it is just a part. Otherwise, all of us could be replaced by AI and outsourced, right? I mean, the data is all there, but we bring the heart, we bring the soul, we bring the experience.
Bam. Thank you, my friends. And talking about experience, please, 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 those that are participating now there, right, give a virtual round of applause, please, for our panelists. Give them some love. Please connect. Today's insights remind us that data isn't just numbers. It's a reflection of people's voices, needs, and potential. Please stay tuned for the rest of our experience today. Thank you again, panelists, for our wonderful experience and insights. Oh my gosh, so much to digest on. Happy Friday, Junior, my friends. Take care.
Thank you all. Take care. Bye-bye.
Great panel. Thanks.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our session integrating moving. Oh, I'm so sorry. I just noticed that I'm on mute. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our session, Integrating Wellbeing. Let me know if that happens again, because it's happened to me a couple of times. Integrating Wellbeing and Mental Health into the Experience Framework. So again, I'm Vanessa Anello. Really quickly, I am the Director of Program Strategy and Growth at Hacking HR. And I'm just really excited to open this important conversation about how mental health and well-being can move from being programs to strategic pillars of the employee experience. So before we get started, let's get the chat moving. If your workplace were a person, how's it doing today? Is it thriving? Is it surviving? Or is it barely holding on? So I would love to hear that. And while you share, let's meet our panelists. So if Jessica can bring them on stage. Hi, everyone. So we have Dr. Brandy Fennell, Senior Director of Organizational Development and Culture and IO psychologist, focused on translating data into human-centered performance strategies. We have Dr. Wajida Small, CHRO and award-winning author dedicated to helping leaders succeed without sacrificing their well-being, Esther Gramegna, Head of HR with global expertise in tech-enabled transformation and inclusive people-first design, Deborah Maynard, CHRO at Coast Mental Health, a recognized HRD Global 100 leader, transforming workplace wellness into organizational excellence, Angela Six, VP of People Operations and Digital Wellness Strategist, bridging HR tech and community well-being initiatives. All right, so let's start with the foundation. Dr. Richard Safir from Johns Hopkins, he says, well-being must be woven into the fabric of business practices, not bolted on. So Angela, from your experience leading in the digital wellness space, what are the most effective ways organizations are weaving well-being into their culture, not just adding it as an HR program?
Sure. Good morning. Thank you for asking that question. I think it's very important that we realize that the employee experience is a measurable driver of business results. And we can speak the same language as other senior members of the team, right? We're able to communicate in a way that they understand what may be difficult for them. We know that there's always a challenge with these types of programs, but once we speak that same common language and we can tie that into our business practices and results, we're going to get a better result.
Thank you so much. So as a follow-up, and I'm going to open this up to the rest of the group, what rituals or systems have you all seen make this sustainable? Something that sticks even when budgets tighten.
If I can add to that, I totally agree with what Angela has just shared. And when it comes to us in our company, we try to keep our programs agile. That's why we really do keep surveying our employees often, especially once or twice a year, to really understand what are the evolving needs, but most importantly, to ask questions that we can actually act on and not just use them just as a feedback sessions. And when it comes to us, we really involved our benefits team to really create PTO policies that align with state regulations, but also they are market competitive, and also sick leaves that are really respected and never seen as a fault. And when it comes to our global offices, we are integrating initiatives where they are tailored to the population and to the way of employment. For example, in our London office, we do have the majority of our workforce working in person. So we do have created a space where employees can use their gym on site for them to take a break from work. In addition to that, we are trying to, again, based on the feedback we've received, to also create a sense of community where well-being is embedded in their everyday work life, and where they can also, we have created a barista station when people can stop and have a drink or coffee there with their team members. And again, this is part of their daily routine of work between meetings and stuff. Thank you.
I love that. Does anybody else want to weigh in here on this question?
Sure, if I could weigh in. We have a team member who is responsible for employee well-being and experience. And so we try to fully integrate that into everything that we do. Can we call it a program? Yes, we have a full program, but it's beyond what we would consider benefits. We actively try to find ways to allow our staff opportunities to come together in community without it being work related, to have opportunities to express themselves, whether it's through athletics, whether it's artistically, just opportunities to just take some space to breathe, get away from their desk, get away from the stresses of work, even if they are still physically in the workspace.
I love
Vanessa, can I just add in? So
Yes,
at
sure.
Coast, the healthy employees is one of our core pillars of our strategic plan. So we try to reflect mental health as part of every touch point of the employee life cycle. So we talk about it, in recruitment. Those are questions we ask. How do you de-stress, and how do you build resilience? We have sessions like yesterday we did all employee town hall. The whole town hall was based on ensuring you can manage trauma, mental health issues, burnout, and build resilience and gratitude through the collective. We talk about it in, we have we do pulse surveys. We follow up with you. You said this. We did this. We try to shape mental health into everything we do. Our managers, we train them. We have mental health first aid. It's just embedded in part of the organization. It's not an add-on to anything. So everything that we do, and yes, we're a mental health organization, but that is our clients. But so we want our employees to feel the same experience in a different way than what our clients do. So those are the things that we try to build in. Like we had yesterday 45-minute session on what are the things that you can do when you're facing anxiety or stress in the workplace. Things from deep breathing, and the easy one, which is a cognitive behavioral component, which is eat a sour candy, because it takes you out of the moment, because all you could focus on is and I'm not advertising for warheads, but the sour warheads, if you put one in your mouth, you can't think about anything else, and it takes you away from those moments. So giving employees those pieces and those different skills so they can just embed it in their day to day, checking in how people are doing, what have you done lately, to build your own resilience. So that's how we're trying to do it. Are we perfect at it yet? No, but I think, we're well down the path of, ensuring that it's embedded into every component at Coast.
Thank you for that addition, Deborah. And I will use any opportunity to eat extra candy. So I will take that, especially in the month of October here. And Dr. Fennell, would you like to weigh in as well?
Sure. Thanks, Vanessa. I mean, I think about sustainable rituals. I just think small, consistent, and integrated, right? And so things that don't take up too much time or a budget. And so something that I've seen really work is just, have it being part of the meeting culture where there's a quick human check-in ending, and you also end with a reset of like, what's one thing we can let go of this week, or doing a simple weekly workload pulse where team members can share like green, yellow, red, taking those minutes, but they kind of build psychological safety and normalize conversations about capacity, right? And then on a broader level, you can do quarterly, what I like to call reset and reflect sessions, not just for project results, but for actually energy and team dynamics, right? To help a team, kind of figure out how to sustain performance over time. I find that those things have worked in the past.
Thank you, Dr. Fennell. Okay, Angela, I would like to circle back to you. The SHRM 2025 Workplace Mental Health Report showed HR confidence in managing mental health issues actually dipped from last year. And I think that's really telling because HR often supports everyone else's wellness first. Right? So when HR itself is under strain, where can professionals turn to for support, do you think?
That's a great question. At the end of the day, we're all humans, HR as well. And yes, we carry a pretty big load here, but we also need to provide for our own wellness and well-being through self-care activities. Some of that is going to be engaging with our peers, right? Talking to people that we have a trust in, that we can share. We feel confident and safe when we're sharing. So some of the things that are available, there are resources, not to shamelessly give a plug, but the organization I work for, we provide for this as well. But there are definitely resources available now. There are support groups through Slack, if you can imagine. Yes, your local chapters of SHRM and some other organizations are providing for this as well. They're there, but you have to start by just reaching out and prioritizing your own self-care. As we've heard, we can't help anybody else unless we help ourselves first. So you got to put that oxygen mask on first, right? And reach out for that help. But it's available. It's definitely there.
Thank you. And just to keep to time, I'm going to pivot to Dr. Wajida. You coach executives who face burnout and identity fatigue, right? So what's the biggest misconception organizations still have about mental health at work, especially for leaders?
Sure. I think the biggest misconception is that mental health is personal, that it doesn't have to do with us, that they need to kind of keep that at home. And as I was listening to Angela speak about what happens when folks get burned out, we often just say, hey, as HR professionals, we have EAP, call EAP. And so you just kind of remove the responsibility. But part of what we have to think about as HR leaders is, are we the ones that are causing harm? Are we versus helping our employees? And so it's taking ownership and responsibility as an organization, as HR leaders, for the mental well-being of our staff, and that includes ourselves, that includes the senior leadership of the organization. And once we are able to take ownership and I'll say part responsibility, because when we think about the amount of time that our staff spend with us, whether it's, you know, virtually, whether it's in the office, the environment plays a huge role in mental health. And so if we find that our staff are experiencing, you know, high burnout, if it's, you know, high turnover, if any kind of mental health issue, we have to ask ourselves, is this environment playing a role in that? And if it is, taking ownership and responsibility to take the steps to shift that so that we are not active contributors to, you know, the mental health concerns of our staff.
Bravo. Absolutely. Dr. Small, absolutely. This is what we all know, and we hope everybody will jump on board and start helping us with this. Work is a social determinant of health. We know that, and it impacts us in so many different ways. There is a shared responsibility to create a culture of well-being within the employment area, because we know there's a ripple effect. Our employees don't leave it at the door. They take it home to their families, their friends, and their communities. And we only want them to take good experiences back to them. We don't want to create a toxic environment that transcends into the world. We don't want to do it. So wellness needs to be a core value that we all embrace and work towards. And everything we do, systems, processes, metrics, it has to be in our DNA in order for us to make a difference.
And if I can add to that, Angela, I absolutely spot on that. I also think that another huge misconception is really the how is well-being and mental health seen? Usually seen as we need to fix a problem and we need to insert trainings that will solve something. But a lot of time, I think we need to redesign our work environment to actually avoid risk, avoid fatigue, avoid burnout, and try to, as we all know, especially in the US, we have this conception of curing instead of being preventative. We as organizations and prioritize our people first. There is so much work that we can do to avoid our employees to feel not supported, to avoid our employees to feel burnout, and create that, as we all said already, that psychological safety for people to feel vulnerable and ask for help. So that is some work we can do before it gets to a level where it becomes a huge crisis for them and for the organization overall.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think the biggest misconception about mental health at work is that it's only about crisis or counseling, or that it starts when someone's struggling. But really, mental health is shaped by your everyday conditions at work and home, right? It's you know, what's happening at home, how you bring it to work. Are you able to compartmentalize? Do you have clarity when you come to work? Is there fairness? How's your workload? What is the behavior of your leader? Do you have that psychological safety? And so if you treat mental health like it's just an individual issue, then HR, we end up offering programs instead of actually fixing systems and processes. And going back to what was just said, you know, the truth is we need to change how we design work, how we manage capacity, how we communicate, how we treat people. That has more impact on mental health than any mindfulness app ever could. So the real shift is moving from how do we help people cope with burnout to how do we stop creating burnout in the first place? Because mental health or wellness or well-being isn't a benefit. It should be a byproduct of how well we lead and design the employee experience.
No, I love that, and Dr. Fennell, and I think that's a good segue to the next point that I wanted to bring up, where we know from the Mindshare Partners 2025 report that when well-being is embedded into employee experience, engagement rises, turnover drops, and financial performance improves. But Gallup also found only 1 in 4 employees strongly agree that their company cares about their well-being. So Esther, how can HR make a clear business case for well-being, connecting it to metrics that leadership teams care about. To hop on to Dr. Fennell's point there.
For sure. Thank you. That's a great question. Well, we show how well-being initiatives like directly affect key business metrics. Like, for example, like encouraging regular breaks and walk meetings, improve like cognitive performance and reduces burnout on the long run. So I think we also like in the past in our company, we have like included like generous PTO and the trusted sick leave policy, where it really lowers absenteeism at work and increases that retention, again, long term within each of our entities and departments in the organization. So as we have seen, like all of those, we have seen those trends when where engagement has increased, and we have saved a lot of costs when it comes to hiring or any type of like replacement. So we have seen that really presenting some specific ROIs to our finance team, our leadership team, has really helped us really make sure that well-being, it is a strategic practice that will help us grow faster, be more productive for sure.
Thank you. And Deborah, at Coast Mental Health, I feel like you live at that intersection where compassion meets compliance. So how do you ensure well-being isn't treated as a program?
Yeah, I mean, it is difficult. I mean, we're embedding, psychological safety into our health and safety teams is part of that. We're delivering, making normalizing psychological safety and wellness and mental health literacy as part of sort of the organization and what we do. So we deliver micro trainings on psychological safety. We do trauma-informed leadership training. We're providing employee supports. I mean, we do things like yesterday when we had our town hall. It just happened to be that the whole town hall was built on this, but we actually had employees who came up and volunteered bravely to get up in front of 200 people that were attending to share what they do to build resilience into their day. What has Coast done? And we heard some stories that, like, I was even shocked. I didn't know that the managers had done that. We train our managers to make sure that they care. We have actually KPIs on turnover, EFAP usage, so that you're measuring it, and it's so what's get measured to get managed. We all know how managers will focus on the things they're accountable for their plans, and trying to integrate everything, those wellness metrics into performance reviews. And of course, I have a leadership scorecard, from an HR perspective, that has a number of these things in there. And we train managers, we give them scripts, we do sessions where they work through having discussions. We actually did a program with Queen's University on mental health leadership, so that they know how to manage with their staff, because they're all trained to deal with our clients, but working with your staff is different. So we actually had a program that was through Queen's that all our managers went through to be able to support employees through mental health and the challenges that they may face at the program. So there's so many different things that we try to do, that it's not just one piece. We're embedding it in every different place, and ensuring that staff have that training, and that staff they attend this different sessions. We do town halls 2 or 3 times a year where we talk about mental health and how we have to take care of ourselves, and and we just continue to reinforce that message. So
I really like that quote, get measured, get managed. For the group at large, do you link it to retention data, performance ratings, or something else tangible? And anyone can step in here.
Yeah, I'll go. When I'm trying to build the case, I really do say like it's a performance strategy and not really a perk. So when I'm building that business case, I look at both the leading and lagging indicators. And on the leading side, there's always, engagement scores, manager effectiveness, workload capacity. and then those psychological safety measures. But on the lagging side, it's turnover and absenteeism and healthcare claims and disability and leave patterns and even error and rework rates, right? So those numbers really tell the story of how well-being or the lack of it shows up in business performance. And then you translate that into business language, reduce attrition, saves X dollars per hire, fewer burnout-related absences, to protect productivity. And then suddenly there's an aha moment and people see that teams with healthy cultures deliver stronger customer outcomes. So, yeah.
No, I love that. And staying with you, Dr. Brandy, what are some ways to embed well-being principles directly into the systems that we already have? Like those performance reviews that Deborah mentioned, or team meetings, or development conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. I mentioned before about having those regular check-in conversations that are part of the meeting culture, and not just broader team meetings, but even the employee manager one-on-one meeting to check on capacity levels, right? And how workload is being managed, and making that something that's actually safe to talk about, right? So no one feels like they're going to be now passed over for another opportunity or participation in a project because they said that, hey, this project's a little too much for me right now. Just think also just being aware of some of those green and red flags, kind of, when it comes to really making sure you have true psychological safety, because I feel like nowadays that's something that's used pretty often. But I don't really know if teams are actually having those honest debriefs that sound more like, what did we learn, instead of who messed up, right? It's important to see role clarity and healthy pacing and not constant heroics in team dynamics. And so managers checking in on capacity as much as they check in on priorities, I think set more clearer norms for disconnecting, and people feel actually having permission to rest, right? Yeah, I'm trying to think of some other things, but I think that's the thing that's probably top of mind for me.
I love that you brought up psychological safety. And of course, we all know that well-being isn't one size fits all. It's shaped by our culture, as was mentioned, and generation, and even geography. So this is a group question as well. How do we design inclusive strategies that meet diverse workforce needs, from frontline workers to global remote teams?
Sure, if I can start. One of the first steps I think we should take, and maybe the most important, is actually to listen to our employees and, ask them what is it that they need, because we often find ourselves just making decisions as leaders without understanding the why behind the decision. It's like, this is what we think our staff need, versus our staff saying, this is what we need. These are the challenges that we're facing. This is the type of support that we believe we will benefit from. And so just, I think, starting there, asking your staff, having them be a part of the process in identifying resources and ways to integrate well-being into the system is important.
Love that. And for the group as well, how has anyone approached equity and access to support, especially when resources differ across regions or departments?
If I can add, when it comes to equity, to us is definitely very important. As she shared already, inclusion is important when it comes to active listening, but equity is also important for the process to be effective. In this case, like in our case, we do have offices across the globe, and as we know, what works for somebody in the US doesn't work for somebody in Dubai. When it comes to us, we have, of course, get access to everybody based on the geography where they're based, not only to transfer those well-being trainings to be remote trainings, but also making sure that the time zone is respected, making sure that cultural differences are also respected when it comes to the content that we are, portraying in those training. But in addition to that, also translating content based on where those trainings are also delivered. So this is creating some form of like really equal access to everybody across the organization, across every geography and time zone. And something else that also I've seen working is also making sure that there is access to mental health, where there is also a clear understanding and respect of our culture will feel about mental health, and kind of help them overcome the stigma about mental health. Because we also have to understand that there is some culture where there is still huge stigma around well-being and mental health. So making sure we are sensitive about those and actively listening and learning and having that, cultural awareness is what will help us be successful in integrating those projects across different offices across the globe.
I would agree with Esther, having that cultural awareness. So maybe a cultural audit is a good place to start. Are we truly living, are our employees truly living the values that we claim to portray in our organization? So cultural audits are great. I also want to mention, when we're talking about mental health, there is obviously this stigma around it. And typically a person thinks of mental health as mental illness. They are not the same. We're talking about mental wellness. There are programs for mental illness. We have an EAP, most of us do, or insurance that can help with those. But as a business, it is not our position or our responsibility to address mental illness in a clinical way. That is not our jobs. There are specialists for that. It is our responsibility to ensure our work environment, our systems, our processes, our roles, everything that we do creates a culture of wellness. So this is what I've heard from everybody on the panel today. But I hope that we recognize that stigma. Mental health and mental illness are not the same thing. And if we understand that, we know from an HR perspective, all those things that we can do, that's going to create and lend to that culture of wellness.
I love this idea of mental illness not being, or mental wellness not being mental illness, right? So if I could hear from every single one of you, starting with you, Dr. Wajida, if you could add one new wellness ritual or benefit tomorrow, what would it be?
That's an interesting question. I will say one thing that we recently started, and so perhaps not new, really is introducing art as expression. And that is something that our staff thoroughly enjoy. And so rather than introduce something new, that's something that we have actively decided this year to continue to offer our staff, just the opportunity to be creative, because it allows you to think differently. And at least in my experience, when you are able to immerse yourself in something that is artistic, you tend to become more calmer. All of the stresses kind of go away. And I think it was Dr. Brandy that said just allowing staff to just take a break. And that's one of the best breaks that our employees like, when they have the opportunity to just kind of be together and enjoy each other's company and create something beautiful.
Well said. And for you, Esther?
When it comes to us, like, if I can think of one of the most impactful initiatives that I could see implementing constantly, at least like once every 6 months, I'll see a huge benefit that everyone, from every office could participate. Definitely like a mindfulness session where everybody can literally take a step down, step away from their desk for a second and really connect remotely with a professional and give them a second to just like take a break from a very fast-paced environment that is our industry. And in addition to that, I think this will create also a sense of community with somebody joining maybe from our London office or somebody joining from our Jamaican office, you know. So I think I will see this initiative, mindfulness, as something that will help the individual, but also will help the community per se feel much more connected, united, because we know that there is somebody else in our other office that we maybe work with, but we never have a chance to actually see in person that they are doing the same thing, taking time for themselves, and will create a huge sense of community where they know, oh, I'm not alone. Actually, I'm doing this session as well because I need to recharge and take a step back. So I'll see some benefit in that for sure.
I like how your answer circles back to an answer that you gave earlier on the walk and talks as well, which I thought was a phenomenal idea. Let's go with you, Angela.
I'm so sorry. I got a little tickle in my voice there for a moment. If I could pass, I apologize.
Oh, no, that's fine. That's happened to me before. All right, with you, let's go with you, Deborah.
Yeah, I think for me, one thing, and it's probably not a huge thing, but I think it could have a huge impact, is a shift and decompress. Because in healthcare, you do shift turnovers and you talk about all the things they need to watch for. I think if we could change and maybe add in what went well today and what are we leaving behind, so that instead of the mindset of all the things that the next person has to worry about that happened that may be more negativity, you're actually then leaving on a positive note. These are the things that went well for us today. And so just shifting the mindset as you leave the organization, for the day to go home. So you're not in that mindset of all the things that, the next person needs to worry about. You're also saying, hey, here's the things that went well. This client did this on their own. I just think that small thing might have a huge impact.
Love it. All right, and Dr. Fennell.
Thanks. Yeah, so I've seen something that I've enjoyed doing is a well-being lab. And it's really just a cross-functional experiment where employees at every level kind of help co-design and test small changes that can improve mental wellness across the organization. And it works because instead of having HR pushing to people, the lab invites people into the process. So you might have a frontline employee, a mid-level manager, or a senior leader testing something as simple as, like we had like a focus-free Friday hour, right? Or a team energy check-in, or a new way of structuring meetings. They collect the feedback quickly. They share outcomes and best ideas to scale across the company. And it builds that ownership and equity because everyone's voice shapes what well-being looks like, not just those, in certain roles. And another thing that I love using is a recharge passport, where every employee gets a digital or physical passport, where they can choose from like a menu of short, meaningful well-being activities. So things like a community service hour, a walking meeting, or just a creative break, or personal reflection session. They stamp it, and when they've completed each one, teams kind of celebrate those milestones together. So it's pretty like universal and flexible, and I think culturally neutral way that everyone can participate in their own way.
Thank you so much. And since we only have a couple of minutes left, we're going to plow forward. Headspace's the 2025 Workforce State of Mind report found that 6 in 10 employees have considered quitting their jobs because of mental health. So let's look forward. I think this is a good place to end for this panel. So again, this goes to all panelists. If you can answer in 1 to 2 sentences, how can HR help organizations embrace mental wellness as a shared social responsibility, not just a perk or not just a trend?
If I could, I mentioned, as I spoke before, tying this to business results, speaking in the language that senior management understands is sort of key here to start off. But as we look at those metrics and the results, the desired outcomes, and we can actually demonstrate the impact, it is going to make sense to them and they're going to get it really quick. That's going to pave the way for us to be more creative with some of these programs. In fact, today we heard of so many different initiatives and strategies and programs that are being put in place. Somebody had already said it's not one size fits all, and we have to recognize that. We have to find what is best for our company. What do we want our culture to be? How do we want to work together? So starting off again with being able to speak the language so that it's understandable, and then identifying what it is that we really want to accomplish here. How do we want to work together is so key.
I love that. Data is a tool for compassion, not control. And who would like to take us home for this?
I could add something to that. I honestly think that we have to take a look outside of the box for a second and really consider that what happens at work at time, we take that outside in our private lives. So if we're not doing well at work, that will impact our everyday life and consequently society out there. So if we invest in, like our employees and we support them and make them feel safe and make them feel heard, valuing rest, valuing like supporting neurodiversity and making sure that mental health is actually embraced and supported, will eventually make our employees, individuals per se, happier. And this will definitely be directly connected to a healthier society. And that becomes part of our, social responsibility.
Yes, thank you so much, Esther. And thank you all for, all of your answers to these questions today. I think some key things that stood out was, as Angela had mentioned, the data as a tool, some leadership modeling and integration, not really isolation. So a heartfelt thank you to Dr. Fennell, Dr. Wajida, Esther, Deborah, and Angela Six for their perspectives, and to our audience as well for sharing such thoughtful comments in the chat. So thank you to our Hacking HR community for making these conversations possible. We'll take a short break for now, and coming up next is AI and automation for personalized employee experience at scale. So thank you again for joining us. And remember, caring for people isn't a side initiative, it is the strategy. Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Hello, everyone, and welcome in. I hope you've been enjoying the Employee Experience and Business Performance Summit this week. And I know we've got a couple of sessions left, and I hope that you enjoy this one. I am your host and moderator for this session, which is AI and automation for personalized employee experience at scale. I'm very excited to be your moderator today. If you don't know me, I'm Lauren Lefkowitz, Executive Coach and Fractional Chief HR Officer. My company is Fine as a Trap, which is based on the premise that nobody is fine. We all have much stronger feelings than that. I'm super excited to welcome our panelists to the stage so that we can get the conversation started. Welcome in, everyone. Amazing. Looks like we have a little bit of a technical challenge, Sophie, on your end. So hopefully your video repairs itself. But in the meantime, let's get started. Panelists, welcome in. If you could just start by each coming off mute, Abigail, then Kim, Salvador, then Sophie, and then Kara or Kara, you'll correct me. If you can tell us who you are, where in the world you are, what you do for work, and why this topic is exciting for you.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Abigail Chilule. I am from Kenya. I am a global talent acquisition specialist, employee experience advocate, and a HR tech as well. I work at, I've been working at Basics International Company and in the position of a global talent acquisition. I am mostly excited for this particular topic because I believe we are all heard about AI almost everywhere, and the technical part about it and all that it is, the capacity and the capacity it has enabled us to do in specifically in recruitment is the impact is quite big. So I'm really excited just to dive in and get share my experience and get information as well. Thank you.
Hey there, I'm Kim Lee. I am in Northern California, Sacramento area. What I do for a living is multitude. I am a senior director of operations at a Wellness Together, as well as an author, and I built an application for that is a leadership coach using AI. So I'm really excited to dive into it. I have spent the last year and a half really learning about the ins and outs and how to use the tool as a value add.
Hello, everybody. My name is Salvador. I'm based in Mexico City. I work for IBM. I'm the senior leader for digital employee experience frameworks and practices. I'm passionate about what experience can do. Experience matters more than we think. When we talk about technology. My goal and my passion is about how to simplify the engagement layer of HR technology for employees. So to make it as transparent as possible. And happy to be here and honored to be here as well.
Hi, I'm Sophie Lopez. I am VP of People and Culture for Cardinal Group Management. We're headquartered in Denver, Colorado, but I'm physically located in Lake Ridge, Virginia, right outside of DC. And I'm excited about this topic because, like other HR leaders, we're sort of in the throes of it all and all going through it and leading this for our organization. So it's good to collaborate with other leaders who are going through the same thing. And I'm interested in hearing how they're navigating this.
Hello, Cara Vega. I always say you asked about Cara or Cara. It's Cara in Espanol, so that works for me too. But hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I live in Los Angeles, California. Always been in a global capacity, both internal and external. I am a global chief people officer, and I also founded Global People Transformation, which is a consulting firm that helps organizations across the board, including with AI. Very, very excited about this topic. Love AI. I think it's honestly one of the best things that could have happened for HR, if I'm speaking personally, and look forward to discussing it with everyone.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone, for all of the intros. So we're going to talk on sort of two very related sides during this session, automation and AI. And so there's some separation of those two and some overlap. But let's start with an automation question. So as HR leaders, when we're looking for scalability and we're choosing to automate processes that used to be manual or that used to be very people-led and now are becoming self-led or electronic, what are some things that we as HR leaders need to look out for to ensure scalability, adaptability, not losing the human touch? When you're ready to answer, just come off mute, pay attention to each other's mute buttons, and we'll interrupt each other a little bit at the beginning, but we'll get used to it.
Sure. Well, I can start if I may. I mean, one of the big lessons learned that we have had is we never automate a bad process, right? Because when we did that, it was a waste of time, a waste of resources. So the first thing we need to do, rather than thinking on automation or technology, is to simplify the process, reimagine the process to make it more employee experience driven. And then you can think on automating the process. Because again, the trap is just for the sake of running into the automation race, to automate something that is not working well. So that's something that we learn the hard way by experience.
I'll also add, as we're kind of going through this right now with my organization and just through trial and error, a few things that we've learned as a best practice is to look for a platform that has modular architecture where it will allow you to build in distinct and independent components. It should also have some seamless integration, API first. So the platform should be very robust. It should have open APIs and easily able to be connected to your core systems. It should be cloud native and horizontal scalability to make sure the system can instantly handle increased user load. And then lastly, localization and multi-role support, especially if you have a global or multi-state footprint like my organization. It needs to be able to adapt to varying legal requirements.
To kind of go back to sorry. Okay. To kind of go back to the looking at what to look at, like where to start the process. Completely agree with Sophie. As far as the technical backend and the type of tool that you're looking for, I think that what I've worked with my team is to look at the manual processes and how can we bring in and utilize AI to help with those, but then also reinvesting that time into human interaction. So instead of a high level example would be, the like benefit enrollment reminders or policy things like that. Have those things automated and use AI for those kinds of things. And then you can use the additional time back to working with employees. Another great way that we've used it is through like employee investigations, being able to pull in, use the transcribing, pull that in and create reports and analysis from that. It's a huge time saver, allowing the HR team to then be more focused on the strategy and really looking at what we should be doing going forward. So those kinds of things.
I think the only thing I would add, it's not just about the technical capabilities, right, which everyone has covered here, but it's really about the leadership and what you're able to do with leadership to be able to be on board and have that framework in place before implementation. So I think that's, just one other key piece if you want to really truly be able to have it long term and be successful, but also, have the ability to have it grow with you and grow with the company. I think that's an important piece.
Yeah, maybe just to add, maybe specifically from what I've been able to interact with, a specific field in healthcare, it's integrating a platform that is able to quickly maybe respond to the new regulations that constantly come up and that are able to just quickly identify and update according to the different regulations in different jurisdictions. So yeah, maybe the ones that are quickly adaptable to changes in the different digital trends as well that are currently in the market.
Great insights to kick off with. One of the things that we hear when we hear resistance is, well, HR is just going to disappear into the background because everything's automated and we don't need people for anything anymore. But obviously that's not what we want for ourselves as HR professionals and as people. And it's also not what we want for our organizations, especially when we're global, when we're spread out, when we've got folks in different countries and different time zones. So how can we ensure that any automation, any AI that we're putting into place actually enhances our ability to have the human experience combined with the employee's human experience and not deter from it?
Let me share my thoughts here. I think we need to think on a future where humans interact with digital labor, right? So we need to work hand in hand. At the end of the day, we cannot take the human out of the loop because it's a human who's going to make the final decisions, to make the oversight of how AI and automation work, to make ethical decisions about what needs to happen or not. It's all about employees should feel liberated of repetitive work, should feel liberated about repetitive tasks and focus on added value tasks that nobody can do except for a human. So I think if we can understand how the new and the future of work is about bringing together AI automation together with a human working along a digital peer, a digital twin, that's going to create the environment where productivity is going to be raised, but always keeping the human as the governance expert of how AI and automation interact.
Salvador, I like where you were going with that as far as it really, ensuring that we continue with the human approach. So automate processes and then give the ability to, do things like if there's a retention risk, the system will help you with that, but the human is the part that addresses it. so really taking the administrative work off of whether it's managers, HR, any function, if you can take those off and some of that busy work and enable and empower and actually I would say almost require a far more human interaction. So that's I think to make sure that it enhances the experience as opposed to replace.
I think that one thing that's important that we've also been working through, there's a lot of anxiety from our teams around AI and the fear of it replacing them in their work. And one initiative we did is to bring them into the process. So let's re-envision what our roles are going to look like. Like, let's highlight those transactional bodies of work that really pulls us away from the strategic work that we want to be focused on. And that allowed us to create this avenue of these are all of the things that we want to move over to agentic HR work. But as for the rest of the HR business partners, anything that requires empathy, judgment, or emotional connection, or strategy or complex decision making, we will keep that in the job description for our strategic business partners.
Any additional thoughts before we move to the next question? Okay. So our next question is, the initial business case for AI and our automation in HR is built often on cost reduction. We won't need as much HR staff, or the HR folks can get more done if we're using some AI or automated tools. But more than just the straight up cost reduction of a headcount salary or of your time spent on things, we have a strategic ROI or several pieces of strategic ROI on the engagement strategy. So what is it besides dollars that we see physically going down because we're investing in something that's less expensive than a staff expense? What are other kinds of ROI that are measurable that we can see as we introduce and implement AI and automation?
I think the biggest thing is growth. So yes, cost savings is usually a factor that comes into play, but that shouldn't be your driver. Your driver should be growth, or whatever the strategic direction the company is going. But that is definitely one of the things that is the ROI of implementation of the personalization experiences. It also increases innovation. And if it's done right, then also retention and performance, and all those correlate then to, successful growth. So I think that's probably one of the most important things that you can get out of it.
Yeah, I fully agree with Kara. I mean, it's besides cost savings, of course, it's a factor, but when you add up the future of work and how AI, automation, agents are going to come together, it's really about increasing employee retention, employee engagement, job satisfaction, because employees will be able to focus on added value activities. There's no doubt that many roles will disappear, but new roles will be created, even roles that we don't know today. And maybe in 12 months we'll have new roles, so we need to be prepared. New skills have to be developed within the HR organizations, where we think probably a combination of AI and human first, how we can combine both capabilities and make these and take advantage of technology and how that's going to work. So definitely we need to be prepared. New roles, new skills will shape the future of work.
I think there's an opportunity, and I agree with everything everyone has said thus far. We can also focus on the value that comes along with human capital. So revenue growth per employee, operating income, and market share. And then there's also talent acquisition and brand value, AI-powered personalization in the candidate experience and onboarding can reduce time to hire by up to 25%, especially for those hard to fill positions. And more importantly, it creates a powerful employer brand that attracts higher quality candidates, reducing your overall recruitment costs and intangible costs for a poor hire.
All right. Looks like we had a technical challenge with Abigail, and hopefully she is rejoining us. We can't see your face yet, so hopefully you'll be able to get back on. There you are, back on camera. Amazing. Welcome back. Let's get specific. I always like for our audience to be able to walk away with something specific or many things specifically that they can come back to their teams with. So let's talk a little bit about a project or a product or a program or a process, all the P's that you've implemented that involves AI or automation or both that's been successful for you, that you would encourage other organizations to try.
For me, I think one of, if I was to pick one thing to either start with, and that's of course assuming that you've done some of the basics to get some of the quote unquote tactical transactional, admin work off of your plate, is really focusing on the employee population from a career journey perspective and having that personal touch. I think that's I've seen that be one of the most impactful very quickly. If you think about, it's a key piece that people want to know where they can go, what that looks like, how are they going to get there, right? It's all tied into, their performance and getting that feedback. And I think one of the biggest complaints you have is that they don't feel that they have that one-on-one attention. And it's quite difficult for managers also to be able to dedicate the time needed to do it right. So having them have the ability to talk about their skills and to figure out what that looks like, it opens up their eyes into, mobility, and especially from a global perspective, having the ability to look at the organization holistically and what could my career paths be and how do I get there and what do I need to work on and what does that look like? I personally think that that's one of the most impactful, and what I have seen has been very successful to do that. So I would say that that's top of list. I have a bunch, I would say, but that would be probably the most impactful that really can help whether you're a very small organization or whether you're a large organization.
Yeah, I think what employees look for when they consume technology or our HR technology is for simplicity and reduce any friction that they have when trying to get information, trying to get career advice, trying to get the information about their next payroll information or how to can request vacation. So in our case, we have developed, and evolved through a very powerful agent or digital assistant that can hyper personalize the experience, because there's a lot of talk about hyper personalization. And now with data, APIs, and automation, you can achieve that level of personalization. So in this case, we have these agents, we have these digital assistants who seamlessly integrate with different background systems, and employees can just go and request for anything. I mean, I want to take a day off tomorrow, and then the system will do it for them. So that's something we're always trying to focus: how to reduce friction, how to enable a more enjoyable, a consumer-grade experience, so to speak. Like if you were consuming Netflix or Amazon, right? Why cannot we translate that into the work environment and make it very simple for employees to use our technology? So that's something that has been our focus. So our ultimate goal is to make HR technology disappear, because at the end, experience is all that matters, right, for the employee. So that's our focus right now. Of course, we are leveraging Gen AI and all these agentic capabilities to make that happen.
I kind of think of so there I'll start with, yes, I fully agree. When you can automate some of those and use AI to help answer questions and help employees have kind of a conversational chat, but also be able to find things that they need to, as far as policy goes, or how to do things. All of those are great tools to use. I think that for me, it's been using it on I'll call it the back end. So the HR team being able to really dig into things like your engagement survey. So analyzing that, the content that's written, because historically you go through, you have places where people can put comments, and the ability to actually really dig into those details, depending on how large your organization is, has been challenging. So I think using that data and being able to track how those things are going, and you can then use that data to make impact on the employee experience. So if you're continually getting feedback on certain areas that need a little more analysis, not simply I want to be paid more. There's nuances in some of what's being said, and it's hard to pull out, just as an individual going through that. Also, taking a further deep dive into your succession planning and skills, and looking at your company as a whole, and being able to help with kind of, to Kara's point, with career path and career planning, but also succession planning.
I agree with that. And we've been able to leverage AI for all of those things. And I've noticed how much better our output is and how much faster we can work in order to conduct that level of analysis. I know that a most recent project we did that has definitely increased our employee experience is creating an AI agent for our policies and SOPs in our handbook. While it seems rather simple, just having this information readily available for our employees to use a natural language and just ask a question of, what does our policy say for a leave of absence? And am I able to do this based on my tenure, or whether I'm full-time or part-time? It's very quick to receive a response on questions like that, but it's also reducing the number of inquiries that's coming into the HR team.
I do agree with Sophie. I think on my end as well, it's what we have been able to implement more is in regards to having an AI agent that is able to provide the FAQs, because under recruitment there's quite a lot of back and forth, maybe on frequent asked questions in regards to maybe the requirements needed, the certifications needed, licenses needed. So all this, it has enabled recruiters and the TAs specifically to be able just to focus on the end point where they do maybe the one-on-one interviews, rather than having the constant inquiries and clarifications directly from the candidates. So I think having a good AI agent in regards to the process of screening and doing the first screening and doing the first interviews, that would be an ideal thing that I would be able to introduce to especially agencies and staffing agents. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. We're getting some really great conversation going in the comments. And specifically, somebody in our audience said, why is it taking so much time? Why is HR lagging behind in this change? And so I ask you all, what do you see as the hesitation from either or both the C-suite and HR teams in embracing and implementing AI?
For me, I think the biggest thing is about trust, understanding, and accountability.
So if you dig, and it doesn't matter which level, I think it definitely exists at the C level, which of course you need to have the C level on board to make anything be successful. But having an actual boot camp where you can talk about, from an ethics standpoint and an understanding, most people, once they really understand the impact that it can have and not be afraid of what that is, it's not even resistance to me that's first, that's probably second, but it's really about that trust and understanding and accountability, and making sure that you have really your champions that are going to, take it through the organization, and that it's a well-diverse pool of people that are involved. But it's usually a matter of education. They and they don't want to admit that. So it's about, having those discussions in a way that brings people on board to understand how the algorithms work, what are the ethical boundaries that we as an organization are going to put in place prior to implementing anything. Usually when you have them on board from that, then you can get people on board.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Kara. And also what we have seen is that there's a lot of buzzword about, how to use Gen AI automation, but the ROI hasn't been seen completely there, right? And I think one of the issues is that it's not just adding AI or Gen AI just for the sake of adding it. You need a strong business case first, a strong business need. And maybe AI is not the solution. Maybe a full automation is not the solution. Maybe you can solve it by a different way or different technology. So I would say that first, what's really important is to understand what's the business need, what's the experience that you want to create to your customers, to your employees, and then see how AI or automation can help you achieve that goal. Sometimes it's not just about adding small steps to your existing process. You may need to redesign from scratch your process in order to have AI embedded into the process itself. So it's really reimagining how you want your company to take advantage of AI and automation. And then you may need, again, to reinvent and start from everything, from zero, your processes and the workflows that you need to improve. As we say, right, agentic is not about technology, it's about workflows. How do you envision your workflows to operate, and then how you're going to use agents or technology to make them more efficient?
I agree with that as well. And, there's a couple other areas. I think one, I have heard some organizations, I think Amazon was maybe one, talking about their, and I've seen it, they are not hiring as many interns and, new college grads for engineering, because they have this expectation that AI is going to be able to do the coding. Sure, there is the ability to do that, but it still takes a human to do the scripting. And it takes a human just to make sure that things stay on track. I mean, again, I built a tool myself. I was able to do the scripting, but, certainly it didn't just go, it didn't go error-free. So instead of looking at things like a cost savings, it really needs to be looked at as a value creation, and how we can align the insights and the ability, the tool to reduce, some of the just create value as opposed to just it's going to be a cost savings. And the other thing I think, and I feel like this is one of the blocks that I have experienced is it's just another thing. So, we have our HRIS systems or, our ATI, we have all of these different systems and tools that we use. And then, every once in a while we come through and say, this is a better tool. This is what's going to do it for us. This is the new CRM. This is whatever it is. And, and then we come with an AI tool and it's not quite, it's not quite understood. And so it's something that everybody's learning. So to me, I think that you have to be able to show that the AI is an overlay layer. It's not we're not going to add on to, we're just pulling from existing sources. We're going to layer this on top of the tools that we already have.
I agree with that. And I don't really think that HR is delaying the process in any way. As Salvador stated, it's really about workflows, and you really need to have clean data also. So if you have not gone through the process of cleaning your data, and it's data that you can depend on and have confidence in, it's another thing that needs to be done to prepare to move into having agentic work being done in your organization. The other part of it is the change management or the changefulness that happens with that. And most likely HR is going to be leading the workforce through this major change, because you will be working differently. You'll be overseeing AI agents, agentic work, and you have to train your workforce to be prepared to do that. We are accustomed to leading people, but it's going to be new for us to be leading an agentic workforce. So the change management that comes along with that, that should be part of your strategic plan that you're working through for your organization.
I agree with Kara. I agree with everyone else as well in regards to that. Most what I've been able just to experience is the fear, and I'd say maybe ignorance on how it really works, the back end of the AI agents, if the privacy is really legit, if the communication is really direct and clear to the people to be able to understand the in and outs on how it really works. That's why I probably would say that HR is a bit slow, but I don't think it's still in the process, but it's more of being very open and having very clear communication with the people in regards on the importance and the impacts of the AI agents and the chat boxes or the platforms that we have to be able to automate our processes. Yeah.
This is such a rich conversation. Our final question, and unfortunately, I don't know if everybody will have a chance to answer. So jump in if you've got something exciting, because we would like to hear from everyone. When you think of personally things that you've implemented, what are some real positive results you've seen from implementing AI and automations to increase retention, to improve internal mobility? And how can we more globally implement that in a way that does feel human without losing that human touch, but improving efficiencies?
I can share that when we think about retention or we think about engagement, it's not an HR function. It's not an HR responsibility only. It's a company-wide responsibility. And what technology and automation have been doing is to eliminate those silos and work together as a single organization, right? The customer doesn't care whether we are finance or HR. They only see us as a one horizontal organization. So I think that's one of the benefits of implementing technologies like this, that we break silos and we think of a process, end-to-end process, rather than breaking it into silos and don't care about what other does. And that comes into this engagement and retention, which is not an HR responsibility only. It's a really company-wide responsibility.
Who else has seen a really positive result from something you've implemented?
I will say that my organization has given access to the entire company to have access to Gemini. And the reason for that, and I know that it's odd and other leaders I've spoken to haven't had the same experience, is to help with the change management and for our employees to get comfortable with AI so that they can start leveraging it in their everyday work. And one thing that I have noticed is that communications are more succinct. They're well thought out. Our team members are taking the time to run it through Gemini to make sure that the tone is checked. Like there's less discourse that's happening. Communications are more thoughtful and accommodating. So I consider that to be a huge win, and for the organization to trust all of our employees with giving them access to this powerful tool.
Maybe just to add on my end, what I can be able to say is it has really reduced the time to hire because most of this initial processes of screening and scheduling interviews and being able just to do the final maybe interview or the completion of the successful candidates, we've been able to see that we are able now to handle massive or quite a bigger number of interview processes and applicants as well, rather than going and doing the headhunting ourselves and doing the scouting ourselves and having just to be able to do, from the first point of screening. So that has been a increased rate on the time we are able just to fill in the needs and be able just to get the quality candidates for specific roles. Yeah.
I was just going to say, overall, I think there's a big difference between the organizations that gain the trust of everyone first versus not necessarily taking that into account in their overall plan for implementation. And I think, trust can really be a differentiator to have whatever, capacity that you're using AI, regardless of what that looks like. Because you still are going to have the employee workforce think about it's another big brother, and that is something that I'm going to do or put in and have this personalization. Is that somehow going to affect my performance because gosh, I'm using it all the time, which must make me feel that I don't know my job, et cetera, et cetera. So I think if you can eliminate that and really actually build a culture where you do not use it for surveillance, there should be very, very strict guidelines for everyone that has access to what is happening with the employee population, that you do not use it in that way, because no matter your size of organization, it will not be successful. People won't use it, and they won't use it the right way. But then on the flip side, also thinking about truly making sure that people do understand there are still ethical boundaries, right? So we don't want to use it as a surveillance, but we do want to use it as an enhancement to your own capabilities and expertise. But being able to do that in a way that, we're not putting, confidential information out into a public tool, et cetera, et cetera. There's still consequences for those things if that comes to light. So I think it's really just a matter of having complete transparency and education from the beginning prior to utilizing or implementing something new. And I've seen all kinds of success, across the board. So.
Panelists, thank you so much. I don't know if you all and our audience members have seen the whole summit, but I've moderated a panel every day and the discussion just never stops being interesting. There's always more to talk about, and unfortunately we run out of time. So our next panel, hopefully you'll stay, is measuring ROI, proving the value of experience to business leaders. That's going to be an amazing session, I'm sure. Panelists, thank you so much for a really incredible discussion, and hope to see you again in another panel. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye, thank you.
Hey everyone, welcome back to day 3 of our October Summit, and thank you so much for sticking with us through this amazing journey of conversations about what it takes to build experiences at work. I'm Sneha, your moderator for this session, and I'm really excited for this one. We're diving into a topic that gets talked about a lot at organizations, but measured for or less. How do you actually prove the ROI of employee experience to business leaders? Because we all know experience matters. But when the CFOs ask for numbers, when leaders ask, what's the impact? That's where things get really tricky. Today's panel is going to help untangle those things. We'll look at what to measure, how to connect people experience to business performance, and how to keep the conversation strategic even when times are very tough. Before we get into the heavy discussion, I would love to go with a very quick, fun question to all the audience here in the chat box and maybe the panelists too. If employee experience were a person at your company or organization, what role would they have? Suppose, let it be example, a friendly barista who knows your order, or a wise CEO who gets stuff done but stays behind the scenes like a lot of people do, and the hype squad that keeps a vibe alive, or like a usual therapist, or something completely different. Please do drop the fun things that comes across your brain. Let's see what's the maximum pick goes like. And now I would love to get our amazing panelists onto a screen. So good to see all the lovely faces and bright smiles on the screen. Thank you so much all for being here. And I would also love to do the first introductions with a very fun question. Please do introduce who you are, what you do, and tell us one thing you wish more business leaders understood about employee experience.
I can go first, if that's okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Buki Adeyinka, and I've been in human resources now for about a decade, working very closely with leaders to co-create people-first strategies that drive engagement, retention, and ultimately, desired business outcomes. One thing that I think employer could do differently is have a total different mindset shift with regards to experience. Understanding that experience is not a nice to have, rather it's actually a strategy execution enabler. And I can explain as we dive deeper into the conversation.
Thank you so much, Buki. Welcome to the panel, and that's so good to hear. And who would love to go next? I see Melissa
I can go next. So, good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. My name is Melissa Laswell, and I'm a global talent acquisition and talent management executive with over 20 years of experience leading enterprise-wide talent strategies for organizations navigating high growth, transformation, and disruption. And some of the former companies I've worked for are Apple, Walmart, as well as Pitney Bowes. But today, I am the founder and principal of Agile Horizons Talent Consultants, where I help companies connect people strategies to business performance through workforce planning, talent management, and AI-enabled solutions. And I am really excited to be a part of this discussion today on how we can scale and sustain employee experience in a way that not only engages people, but clearly demonstrates ROI to business leaders. And I would say, to answer your question, I think linking the value of experience and really tying it into business performance and really helping leaders to really understand how critical and important that is to workforce planning for today as well as the future. So I know we're going to dive into that topic here shortly. Looking forward to it.
Thank you, Melissa. Welcome to the panel.
Thank you.
All righty, I'll jump in next then. Hi, I'm Adam Hopewell. I've spent 25 years odd now working all over the world, 4 years India, 4 years China, 7 years the Middle East, last 10 years here in the USA, working with incredible organizations to really help bolster the combination of strategy, science, and systems within organizations to really help to make them generative places for people to work. I have a lovely analogy where the talent as being a seed, an organization as being the soil, and the business dynamic around us being the skies, and trying to bring the alignment so that talent seeds can germinate and grow healthily within that soil under those skies. I think metaphorically is one of the big aims. Tying that to financial business results is one of my special skills. One of the reasons I think I've been asked to be in this panel today. One takeaway for business leaders, I'd say on this topic in particular, engagement doesn't equal experience. I think engagement is a function of experience, but they're not the same thing. And just because you're measuring engagement surveys and getting engagement data doesn't mean that you're measuring experience, which is a more holistic concept than just the engagement matter, which is a function of that experience.
Can't agree more. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Adam, and welcome to the panel.
Then I'll go. I'm Dr. Paul White. I'm a psychologist and speaker and author, taken a fairly well-known book, The 5 Love Languages, and taken those concepts and applied it to work, called The 5 Languages of Appreciation in the Workplace. And it's been translated in 25 languages, sold 600,000 plus books. And I help organizations create positive workplace cultures. As far as your question, I think a key part when thinking about employee experience is that the employee brings their whole person to work and to the experience. And that I think we saw over COVID and beyond, that what goes on in our lives outside of work impacts our lives at work and vice versa. There's not a hard and fast barrier that, like I think we tried to think it was earlier. So we need to understand our employees as people, not just employees.
Thank you so much, Dr. Paul. Welcome to the panel. And without wasting a minute, I would love to jump on to a couple of personalized questions that really align with your own experience and today's topic. And I would love to start with Buki. So here's the question for you, Buki. What leading indicators, those early signals, should organizations track to prove value before long-term outcomes show up?
That's a really good question. When we talk about employee experience, right, it's really about what it feels like to work in an organization. Do people feel energized by the work that they do? Do they feel included? Do they feel seen? Do they feel heard? Do they feel respected? Those feelings drive the actions for the most part. So depending on how people feel about how they see their work, that also sort of accelerates engagement, right? And we all know that when people feel engaged, right, that's when we start to see that discretionary effort. So some of the things that we can start to track before we end up with the lagging indicators like retention and all of that good stuff is could be things like participation. Are people participating in events, a cross-functional collaboration? Is it where it should be? Are people speaking up in meetings? Are people coming up with ideas and solutions? Those are some of the things, leading indicators that we can start to sort of track before we get to we have a bigger issue on our hands. So in my view, I believe that, again, those feelings of empowerment and, people feeling energized and things like that all shape how people, all shape employee experiences. And that could either drive up or down engagement. And depending on where we are on the pendulum, that would have a lasting or significant impact on what people do. So I like to think, feel, do. How people think about the organization drives what they feel about the organization, and in turn drives what they do in the organization. And how we can start to track that. We can look at things like cross-functional collaboration, participation, and things like that.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And if anyone has something to add on to that, or just piggyback onto that, I would let you, or I would jump on to the next one. Okay, I will jump on to Melissa. So this is the question for you. When you're talking to CFOs, CEOs, and the C-suite, do you frame the ROI of employee experience in a way that moves it beyond HR metrics and into true business impact?
Yeah, thank you for that question. It's a great one. And I feel like it really is steering the conversation that we're trying to have today, right? To be able to enable the HR function to really be a true business partner to the leaders. And, my experience, when I talk to, CFOs or senior business leaders in the C-suite about the ROI of employee experience, I don't start with HR metrics or HR jargon. I really like to meet them where they are. And I like to start with the business levers that they already manage, like cost, productivity, and growth. If people are leaving or ramping slowly, that's lost money, lost time, and lost momentum. So I frame experience in those terms. So for example, time to productivity, regrettable attrition, and internal mobility, because each of those has a clear financial impact and will impact the bottom line. Because every day you shorten the path to full productivity, you accelerate revenue. Every regrettable exit avoided protects institutional knowledge, it retains critical skills, and it saves significant cost. The key is to move from reporting HR metrics in isolation to really telling a business story with data. So I look at leading indicators, like, for example, offer acceptance, onboarding feedback, manager effectiveness, and early retention to see if investments are landing. And then we compare those with lagging indicators, like, for example, voluntary turnover, mobility, performance trends, and engagement tied to business outcomes to prove whether the investment actually worked. But I feel what really makes the difference and is the true differentiator here is where these metrics live. They can't just sit in HR slide decks and only be discussed on special occasions, right? They have to show up in the same forums where and when business decisions are getting made, which means QBRs, it means business reviews, it means operating dashboards. So they need to be right next to financial, cost, and performance. That's how you show alignment against the strategic people investments the business has already funded and keeps a real-time pulse on the organizational health, engagement, as well as experience of the employees. I think one example that I can give to help sustain that, and that I've focused on the past, I should say, is really upskilling the HR teams. And it's building business acumen. It's developing a data-driven mindset, and it's learning how to tell a clear financial story with our metrics. I've also focused on creating always available dashboards and tools so that my team and the business leaders can access real-time data anytime. And that means tracking engagement. It means tracking experience and key workforce metrics side by side with the business KPIs. I feel like when you do that, that's when people analytics lives where the business runs. The ROI of experience becomes visible, it becomes measurable, and it becomes trusted. It stops being an HR narrative and becomes a business outcome. And that's when I feel that employee experience stops being a feel-good conversation and really starts operating as a business lever.
Thank you so much, Melissa. That is very well said. Thank you. And my next one would be for Dr. Paul. And since research has consistently shown that employees leave because they don't feel valued, how does that usually affect the profitability?
Yeah, it's a huge issue because turnover is the single largest non-productive cost to any organization, whether it's a for-profit business or not-for-profit or government, and can range, from just a few $1,000s for a frontline employee to, 5 times or more the salary of an executive. And so it's huge in the total economic life of a business. But most executives think that, people leave for higher pay, but we've got over 10 years of research that show that people actually leave when they don't feel valued. I mean, one study showed 79% people cited not feeling appreciated for leaving, or during the Great Resignation, appreciation was 10 times more of a factor than people leaving for higher compensation. So, it's a people issue that affects the bottom line. And fortunately, we've been able to figure out and teach not only leaders, but team members how to show genuine and authentic appreciation of one another in the ways that are meaningful to the recipient versus just the way that the person that's communicating it likes to be shown appreciation. So it's a direct line to the functioning of the business.
Thank you so much. That's really valuable. And we have Adam. So here is a question for Adam. Where does candidate experience fit into the ROI equation, and how early should organizations start designing for it?
All right, that's an interesting one because a lot of traditional definitions, especially if we're looking at employee engagement, wouldn't even say that talent acquisition activity was involved in that because they're not employees, or at least the candidates aren't. But I would push back on that, and I would say that if we're looking at where experience starts, and it does start in talent acquisition, not just because some of the folks in the interview process hopefully will be hired and then become employees, but also the TA system architecture really is a key signal to all of the employees involved in hiring as to how the company really thinks about the experience that it generates from applicant all the way to customer. And I think that having a holistic view of the experience being generated, not just thinking about the employees, but how that interacts with other stakeholders necessarily, is a really useful way to try and help frame employee experience, because then it doesn't just stop clustered at the employee. It also impacts the entire infrastructure and ecosystem that you're building as a business. To go into a bit more specifics, I guess that for me, hiring has 3 primary drivers, and the first of those would be predictive validity, the second would be process reliability, and the third of those would be the people experience that the hiring process generates. And that covers all the stakeholders that I mentioned earlier. Now, if we're going to get more technical on that, then it feeds into, and I loved Melissa brought together a lovely cluster of different metrics there. And I think that really some spot on points that were made by both the other all three of the other panelists at this point. But specifically, I'd say that we look at quality of hire. I think quality of hire is very badly measured in the majority of organizations. There's not a concrete way of doing it. There is a concrete way of doing it, actually. There's a really good way of doing it, but it's not adapted by many organizations, which means they find it hard to correlate that to business impact. Mishire, cost reduction, time to productivity in days, offer acceptance rate, as was brought up previously, retention to critical roles, all of those are natural feeders from the candidate experience, which then feeds in to the employee experience. But if you're to put one ring to rule them all, like we're going a bit Tolkien-esque here, then I'd say that I've been a big believer in a concept called ROTI, which is return on talent investment. And return on talent investment basically looks at the entirety of, looks at the primary business driver as a metric. So as the top of the equation here, we're looking at, is that potentially for a certain organization, revenue generation, ARR generation, for example. Then the denominator there is basically the entire cost of all talent activities involved, at entire cost of all of the salaries, benefits, everything that's being used to fuel human capital inside a scenario, including the entire HR cost as well. What you end up with is a ratio which says for every dollar that you're spending on human capital and people, essentially, all people practices, how much are you generating in your primary return metric? And I've worked with organizations taking this from where it's been on arrival, like 30 cents. We were generating, it's an AI scale up, generating 30 cents for every dollar being spent on human capital. But over the years, if you can focus on that as a primary metric and focus on the trend you're generating, and I've brought organizations up into the multiple digit dollars of return on talent investment. And I think that, again, goes back to a point Melissa was making about talking the language of the business stakeholders. When they can hear, okay, so we were spending $1 and we were generating 30 cents. Now we're spending $1 and we're generating $5.40. Okay, hey, obviously what you're doing is having some impact here and it's being helpful to the business.
Absolutely. I cannot agree more. And I would love to open it up for a very broader discussion. And my first topic of discussion would be, what's a core principle you think leaders must understand if they want to see meaningful ROI from employee experience work? And I would just go mute myself and I would leave it up for the discussion.
I can jump in. I think one of the core foundational principles is that experience has to live inside the business operating rhythm, and it cannot just sit with HR. And when you review people metrics, like retention, mobility, engagement, by introducing QBRs that you sit down alongside with your business and with key stakeholders, you're able to discuss cost and growth, and you make employee experience part of how you run the company. And that requires an intentional plan of development for the whole HR team to keep business acumen and data storytelling skills accessible and training them so that we're not just sharing HR metrics, but we're connecting them to business impact in real time. And I truly believe that these are deficits that currently exist. When you think of the HR practitioner of the future, these are core critical skills that we need to be upskilling our teams to be able to assist them, to be able to connect the value of experience back to the business and be able to share and meet the business where they are.
Very well said, Melissa. And I totally agree. I think leaders have to understand that, employee experience is not just an HR initiative, like you already said. It's actually a business strategy. Again, it's not about the perks, the programs, or the surveys. It's about how work feels for the people doing it, the systems they use, the leaders they follow, and the culture they operate in. When leaders understand that every policy, every meeting and decision creates an experience, then they start to see it as a performance and innovation and retention lever, and not just employee satisfaction. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I would agree that clearly integrating it into the business system is important. But I find and get feedback all the time that really a key aspect is for leaders to understand and accept that their employees are people, and that they have human needs, social needs, emotional needs, family needs, and I think one thing that, the pandemic taught us is that our lives are intersected far more. And so if we don't relate to people as a person, but rather a position or a production unit, they feel that, like you said, Buki, earlier, people want to feel seen, heard, respected, and even known, right? And so that I am not just my resume or my position title, I'm me, and I bring other characteristics to the workplace, personality characteristics. I'm cheerful, or I'm outgoing, or shy, or whatever. That's part of who I am, and it implies a need to facilitate that process. And I find that lacking in a lot of places, of helping team members get to know one another at a personal level that they're comfortable with, but that they're not just replaceable units like a Lego set. But that one of the things we're learning is that people and employees aren't really attached to or loyal to an organization. People are attached to and connected to other people. And so when we build those human connections, that's when we lower turnover, and people stay, even though they may have other opportunities.
Paul, I really like that in a number of ways. I don't particularly like military analogies, but there's a military analogy that says you don't fight for your country, you fight for the person to the left and to the right of you. And that's because those are the people that you are connected to. And connection, I think, is a really important concept that we need to keep alive. Connection is the highest driver of happiness. So apparently, the longitudinal studies done on this, connection is the thing that drives most human happiness. And by building connection, you drive happiness. And if someone can associate their working experience with a happy experience, because they have connection, strong connection within that scenario to the company, its mission, and to the people to the left and to the right of them, then it really drives business results. Making that measurable can be more difficult, but I also, from my perspective, I'd say one of the things we can teach leaders, or we can teach leaders, I could help explain to leaders potentially here, is that it's possible to cascade, to architect a cascade. And what I mean by that is we can take the business strategy, which will have a series of outcomes, potentially around growth, around profitability, and you can cascade those down into capabilities. So for an example, organization I worked with recently, the core capabilities that came out of their business strategy, which I won't reveal its outputs, but basically the capabilities they needed were essentially around agility, innovation, and collaboration. And I'm sure a number of the people were here on this call have companies that want to align around those capabilities as well. Then what you can do is create employee experiences that help create a breeding ground, a training ground for those capabilities. If you take something like agility, I remember one of the organizations I was working with, we came up with the concept of day of learning. Day of learning gave an opportunity to stop work to show that it was valued by the organization. So no one had to work on that day. What people had to do was come together and share learning about anything they were passionate about, whether that was something in the business, whether we'd had someone do sessions on cross-Sahara trekking, because he'd done a cross-the-Sahara trek before. Anytime they were just sharing knowledge in a structured way with other people about things they were passionate about. What does that create? It creates basically a want to learn. It creates a connection as well, not just about what I did last week for the business, but what I did in my personal life. So you're creating connection and agility at the same time. And so that is a strategic response to build a capability when that capability is linked to a business outcome that the company is intending. So this is what I'm talking about in a cascade. You can look at it as a cascade, and from that cascade, create strategically targeted activities, which then can be measured on their ability to increase the capabilities, and those capabilities can be measured to show their increase of the business value being generated.
That's very well said. Thank you so much, all the panelists, for beautifully putting together the topic. I would love to address one question from our audience. We do have a lot, but just addressing one question at a time. So if you had to pick one metric that shows the business and senior leaders the importance of HR metrics, what would that be? It could be a one-liner or it could be a sentence, whatever you comfortable in sharing with.
I would pick employee turnover rates because of its impact and because of the challenge. It's a huge issue today. It's one of the top 3 problems HR professionals face, followed by hiring people to fill those spots. You sort of the best way to hire somebody is not lose somebody, and so I would vote for employee turnover.
Yeah,
I would.
Oh,
go ahead.
No, go ahead. You go first.
I would use engagement, employee engagement rate, because sometimes even when we have really good turnover, it doesn't always translate to the fact that people are actually engaged. And engagement shows up in productivity gains, shows up in excellent cross-functional collaboration. So you might have bodies in the organization where they're there, but they don't necessarily bring in a discretionary effort. So I would choose that.
Yeah. I would say, and this kind of ties in to what Paul shared, but I'm going to clarify it a little bit. It's really the retention of the high performing talent and like your key niche skills. And the reason why I say this is because it directly ties to when your best people stay, you can actually tie it to productivity is rising. You can tie it to customer outcomes that you see are improving. And you can also see that costs drop too as well, because you're retaining those skills. And that I feel like is ROI that you can turn around and be able to share and tie directly back to the business because it's their talent and you can be able to share that with them and show it and showcase it.
I love that focus on the critical role incumbents. And I don't think it's so much about critical people, but I think there are roles that are inhabited. And we used to do this as an annual process with one of my former organizations, which was a $7 billion organization, but we would annually look at the business strategy of this upcoming year, which roles, not which people, but which roles were most going to drive business success, using a Pareto principle to look at like approximately 20%. We would voice this to the entirety of the company to say, okay, these are the strategic objectives for next year. Which roles in our organization are going to most help this particular year's strategic objectives be achieved? And then identifying those critical roles, then looking at who are the incumbents in them, and then driving the incumbents' retention and increasing performance of those individuals as well. I'd also say that I'm a big lover of talent density. I think talent density, if measured well, on the Netflix model and post-Netflix models, basically is a very high indicator of this. And then I'd come back primarily to my ROTI, which is the return on talent investment, which I think directly correlates, and especially from trend analysis, especially if you use a trailing 12-month trend analysis, you can get some really good, clear data as to whether the money you're investing in people practices is resulting in primary business output.
Thank you so much. That's amazing answers. And I hope our audience have found their answers from the entire discussion now. And I will quickly jump on to the next one because we're just 10 minutes away from closing the panel, but I know that this could be 1 hour more. Yeah. And my next one would be, what are the biggest challenges in quantifying the ROI of experience and how do you address leadership skepticism?
Well, I would say that one of the challenges is sort of the integration that Melissa was talking about earlier between HR metrics and business metrics. I don't know that I work with organizations from small to, PepsiCo and Caterpillar and so forth. And, the HR leadership may not have access to some of the business data, but as a psychologist and not an HR person, I sort of have the benefit of being able to make some observations that are hard to make. But I think HR professionals need to share the hard data. I mean, it puts your job at risk. But if you want people to believe you, you've got to say, this isn't working. Like we know that reward and recognition programs cost a lot of money, billions and billions of dollars. And yet employee engagement goes down, employee turnover goes up, it's not working. And so I think we need to call a spade at some point and say, we need to do something different. What is that different? There's a risk to that, but I think you gain respect by being able to address the data as it really is.
I think that the hardest part is proving cause and effect. Leaders want to see business outcomes. They don't want to see HR activity. Just to speak frankly and plainly, I tackle that by focusing on one measurable friction point at a time, especially if I'm getting some resistance. And that could be like onboarding or internal mobility, or even selecting a metric that specifically resonates with that business leader and tie it back to cost and productivity, things that operators understand and that CFOs understand, because then we review those outcomes quarterly. So just like revenue or margin, you're tying it back to what you discussed during QBRs so that the business can see progress and can pivot fast by creating an agile format that matches the dynamic needs of the business. Because when leaders see retention or ramp up improvements in the same conversation as performance metrics, I feel like the skepticism, it fades away. And they start seeing HR speaking their language in the form of data, outcomes, and ROI, which elevates you as a true partner and gets you the buy-in and the credibility that you need. Because I feel like by building that trust and being able to show them the ROI, that's when you can start sharing all of the softer metrics, right? When we talk about experience that really, really matter, and that the human pieces that in HR we care about, we know our business cares about too. But it makes it so that, and all the panelists have discussed this, it makes it so that people are not just a number on a spreadsheet, that they're actually true people. And I feel like in HR, if we can translate that and help them see that from an ROI standpoint and speaking their language, we help to bridge that gap of understanding and meeting them where they are.
Yeah. I'd say as well that it starts internally with HR folks seeing themselves primarily as business people who bring a certain set of capabilities to the table, which they're really good at, and that have direct business impact. You've got to believe that. And that means you've got to get enough data to convince yourself. So you're never going to convince others if you haven't convinced yourself first. And I've always described myself as a business leader who uses HR, data science, and other skill sets in order to create tangible business impact. So I think that's one of the first things that you got to internalize it first, because otherwise you're preaching a story or telling a tale you don't believe. I'd say a second concept that's really important is bringing, especially CFOs I work very closely with, on board with the concept of directional data. Not all data needs to be exactly specific. There is a great value in data that indicates trends, movements, and tendencies. Doesn't always need to be precise and exact to absolute measurement. If you can show a trend, that's good enough at times to be able to show that things are moving in the right direction. And in order to strengthen that, I think there's a number of ways we can use things like contributing factor analysis, where you look at essentially how much of a business outcome, it could be a reduction in absenteeism or a reduction in turnover, for example, and then looking at all the activities that the organization's has done, and other mitigating factors, and trying to work together with the leadership team to attribute how much do you think as a percentage the work that we've done in employee experience, for example, has had on that. And typically, if you break it sounds like it's not breakable downable, but typically it is. You'll say, okay, well, sports teams locally have been doing really well, so that's given a boost to people. There's this factor, this factor, this factor. We increase some benefits spend here, so that's going to affect. But typically, as with any Pareto principle, you can lock it down to the things that are most moving the needle. And if you've got a strong portfolio of employee experience activities occurring, then you can come up with and come to an agreement as an attributed value of how much that impacts. I even talk you through a very concrete example of that, If you saw, for example, a 1 day reduction in absenteeism and a 1% reduction in attrition in a 5,000 person company over here in the US with what, 60,000 average salary, then and an investment of what, so let's say 500K in employee experience activities, which you'd bring a nice portfolio together for, then if you, on the basis of that math, then if you attributed, say, 30% of the impact on employee attrition and maybe 60% on absenteeism, then you can actually get down to a specific, like what, 230 odd % return on investment if you know that you spent 500K on employee experience activities. It is breakable downable. And is that specific to the dollar? No, it's not. But is it strong directional data to show that that investment is turning, is making, is returning, is creating a return? Yes, it is. So it just requires leadership to work with directional data, contributing factor analysis, and the fact that we are business people and we're here to help that business thrive. Greatest gift we can give to our employees is a thriving business, more opportunity for learning, promotion, growth. That's the greatest gift we as practitioners can give to our companies, is a commercially thriving institution. So why wouldn't we want to focus all our efforts, all our skills and capabilities on generating that?
Thank you, Adam. That was incredible. Thank you so much all for this amazing insights. So I still do have a minute, but I would just drop down the question, and I really wish all the panelists, please do get back to the comments and please answer that question for our audience if you do have a minute. It's what's one initial personal step and one step as an HR professional that you'd encourage leaders to take starting tomorrow? So that would be my question for you all, just in case if you wanted to drop it into the chat, because we are right at time and we'll need to jump on to the next panel. Thank you so much all for your incredible insights. It was fun and it was packed with great ideas, advices, and I hope all our audience who have joined us is leaving with amazing ideas and insights to take back to their work. And thank you all. Stay hydrated, stretch a little for a minute, and we'll see you in the next session.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, welcome back. If you are staying with us, thank you for continuing to join us. And if you are just joining us, well, welcome, my friends. Happy Friday, Junior, or Friday Eve. Welcome to the Employee Experience and Business Performance Summit. I'm a people and culture executive with 2 decades of cross-industry experiences in data-driven designs, inclusive initiatives, talent, organizational development, which is why this particular subject and conference is so near and dear to my heart. But you are not here for me. I'm Dr. Frank Gonzalez, or Dr. Frankie G. That be me on this Friday Eve. I have the honor of serving as your moderator. Before we even get started, let's bring our panelists up. We got the smiling faces and the energy. Let's keep that going. I want you all to take a moment and thank yourselves as the participants for taking time. Yes, you that are dialing in, taking time for yourself to professionally and personally develop yourself. I know it's hard to balance all these things and just taking this time out of your busy schedule to do so. Show some love, show some reactions, throw some emojis. I'll do my best as a moderator to curate some questions and kind of weave them in as they come out. But I also want to thank Hacking HR for this crowdsourced information and very practical, very approachable approaches to the work that we do day in and day out. So without further ado, my friends, Ryan, I want to start with you. We're going to kind of go clockwise here. A little bit about, your background, who you are, why you said yes to this subject, because that's really important, right? It's really important of why you said yes, especially out of your busy time, and giving us these insights around the value, experience in business leaders. So let's start with you, Ryan.
Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity. And I'm Ryan DeCoste. I'm the Senior Vice President of People and Organizational Development at Click Health. We are a global marketing, life sciences, pharmaceutical agency. And I pinch myself every day that I get to serve this organization and the amazing Clicksters in it. It was a full body yes moment when Jessa reached out and the team at Hacking HR. I believe we're in the business of people. It's really we're in service of, and how do we make the organizations we're part of be absolutely amazing and really marry the element of people and business, because you need both to thrive, not survive, but to thrive and to do the best work possible for the clients, and then obviously your internal folks as well. So Frank, that was my full body yes moment and why I joined this amazing panel today.
I wrote down full yes, and folks, in for a treat, whether you type it into your phone, laptop, or if you're just kind of traditional like me, I like to just get all the senses involved. Bring your notepad, because I almost forget what my job is. Full yes moment. I love that. Thank you, my friend. Carol.
Yeah, thank you.
Good morning. My name's Carol Cooley, and I am an HR executive, chief people officer. I'm in fractional right now. And enjoying that world very much. I am a huge employee experience enthusiast. You know, since the term has been coined, I really believe that as business has continued to evolve and grow and change, that the focus on creating more human-centered workplaces has really been something that I've seen propel and drive business performance. And so I think there's a lot that we can do as HR professionals to really keep this at the forefront of our organizations. And for me, just the title of the summit itself, Employee Experience and Business Performance, really was my moment of this is something where not only am I really passionate about the topic, I think there's lots going on in this space. There's lots more that we can continue to explore as technology and AI and digital tools continue to advance. So I felt like this is something that I could not only contribute to, but also learn from my fellow panelists about what's going on in other organizations so that we can really get some of those best practices and ideas out there to serve the HR community.
I love it. I love it. Thank you, my friend. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I love the human propel. I love that. I wrote that one down. It's like just take it on, but keeping it at the forefront. Absolutely, absolutely. Carolina.
Hey there. So my name is Carolina Jacob. I'm based in Argentina. I'm the HR lead for Virtistan, a cloud services company. Totally remote and global. So proud for being part of that company. I have been there for almost 5 years this year. So it's been quite a ride building the HR function and working closely with so amazing professionals. So in terms of why I'm here, well, employee experience has always been something that I'm like passionate about. And we spend so much time at work. I mean, well, in my case, I love working. I mean, it's something that I enjoy doing. So why not, bring purpose to it? I mean, it's a pleasure for me to like be at the, forefront of like working with people to make sure they're happy where they are, to make sure they're happy, like developing their skills and bringing whatever I can from my angle to their lives. Because again, like, it's so connected, right? Work life. So yeah, amazing to be here and to be sharing with all of you.
All right. Exactly. I said earlier this morning in a different panel, but that employee experience is that is the future proofing right there. As we talk about this, that is, it will not change. It will not change. We need to keep people at the center and we will get what we project. Right. And so thank you, my friend. I appreciate that. Words well said. Thank you so much. Nicole.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Nicole Lemaire. I'm located in Guernsey in the Channel Islands, islands between France and the UK in Europe. And I lead a people transformation team across 50 countries, also fully remote. And the reason I wanted to be here today is because I'm coming from the people transformation lens, really. And I see it as kind of employee experience really unlocks the full potential of the workforce. And again, kind of future-proofing skills and systems. So that's the reason why I love to join.
Transformation is so huge. That's also part of that future proofing, right? Organizations, regardless of technology, will always go through transformation as we evolve with our language, as we evolve in our tastes as consumers, whatever your organization you may work for, right? Those inputs, which we're part of that people, the output may be different, but the transformations are definitely can continue, right? But at the center, as you all are saying, is this employee experience, and it's so important. So thank you. And we have a true international panel, which I am so grateful for. So thank you for staying up late with us or being up early. I appreciate you all so much, and I know our participants do too. There's a lot of affirmations already going on in the comments here. Lakshmi, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to people who've logged in from across. I'm based out of India. It's 10:30, but it's really very exciting. 10:30 in the night, but it's very exciting to be a part of this. Frank, I loved your energy. And so why am I excited to be a part of this? Like you said, right, it's global. And we have people from all parts of the world coming together to discuss and exchange about employee experience. I handle talent management, performance, managerial effectiveness, and employee and the manager are the center of everything that we do, like you already said. So very excited to exchange notes, to share from the esteemed panel members about what's happening, what we can do better. So really excited for this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, my friend, and thank you for being up with us. Honestly, is just felt off of not only our community base that dials in. And friends, if you are feeling burnt out, stress, your purpose is lost, the meaning is like, what's going on? You feel like you're going to get left out for the future. AI or your organization is going through transformation. This can be your outlet. I get re-energized actually by being with you all and being with our participants. This is a true community that's just exploded over the last few years, right? And so, Lakshmi, I'd like to actually stay with you, my friend, if we can. And we'll kind of go counterclockwise this time. As we think about those expectations and as we think of them as evolving, right? How do you define, from all your experiences, how do you define like a future-proof employee experience? What is that shift, that innovation, like, and how do we help organizations really continuously adapt and improve to that?
Thanks, Frank. So I think the impact of AI and all of that has been much discussed about. So I'm not going to walk that path. But when I look at the future of employee experience, to me, it's about how can you get the employee's purpose aligned with the org's purpose, right? Because we have a multi-generational workforce, and for each generation or even an individual or a different diverse candidate, the purpose is very different. At a certain stage, I want flexibility. At a certain stage, I'm okay to clock in 15, 20 hours because I want to explore things. So different people have a different purpose. And it's going to be very interesting to see when we've already through AI looking at so much of personalization, it's going to just get into the next level in terms of complexity, but also very, very interesting to see how we are going to really align. Because today, I think organizations have just scratched the surface when they're saying, we need to, it seems very cliched when we say we're going to, we have to align org's purpose with employees' purpose. But that is disrupting at a very, very, at a very, very fast pace. So we have too many moving parts, too many interesting parts, all to be aligned. But I think finally, if the employee feels truly at the center of everything that we do, they need to experience it. We are saying that we'll keep them at the center, but when is it that the employee is going to say that, yes, I really love to come to work and my work and life are totally integrated? I think if we can get there, or at least take some steps in the direction, I think that's the future of employee experience in my view.
Thank you, my friend. So many things said there, right? Because even regardless, as you said, we're not going to walk through the AI. We've talked about that. People have a bit of an anxiety, a fear, a worry of being left out on that. But the prompts and the parameters of even AI come from human, right? And we're still the heartbeat of that. And it goes back to the kind of the emotional heartbeat of an organization, right? It may be attuned or aligned, as you say, or it may be out of attunement. It may be a little tweaking and things like that. And we absolutely are that heartbeat now and moving forward. And we can definitely be a part of either we are influenced by the environment or we can potentially influence the environment, is the inspiration I took from you. Thank you, my friend. Nicole.
I think it's interesting, right? Because the culture drives adoption of any type of, whether it's AI, whether it's something we implement, whether it's well-being, etc. If you look at the employee experience as a product, right? I think often people feel threatened, as what you just said. And I don't think we can actually drive to change, but what we can do is kind of create those conditions that allow us to, what needs to emerge, right? And in the employee experience at the moment, those are so many different things that are currently being, explored, right? We need to be adaptable, measurable, personalized, equitable. How can we actually do all these things? We need to, create listening loops. We need to look at career frameworks. And I think often people just don't know anymore, okay, how can we actually create those shifts that help us? And I think it's kind of stepping back and looking at the overall picture. And that would be my advice, is kind of where we're looking for, continued expectations, step back, because it's not that overwhelming. It's just take little, little steps to get there.
Oof, a lot there. I had to write. If you all see me like jot down, I'm just as much as a participant as anyone else. And I'm like, very, very inspiring. Those conditions, absolutely. The conditions for or setting that environment of expectations. Absolutely, my friend. And affirmation, even, I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly. If not, please correct me. But Zanel, the why and linking the ROI to organizational goals and quantifying the problem. Everything in the human science world can be quantified as simple as a Likert. It really is. And then open responses, right? And creating assessments around that frame, but still got to have a heartbeat to go with that, right? So thank you so much. Carolina.
Yeah, so many interesting things that have been said. I was thinking, about AI. What I feel is like we're doing kind of like this journey from the beginning. It was maybe overwhelming for organizations. Everybody wanted to use it. Like nobody wanted to be out. It was a lot to capture. And now I feel like we're going into that stage in which, okay, we have this as a tool. Let's use it as a tool. Let's leverage it. But not forgetting, don't feel like this is going to replace the human touch. I mean, let's use the time that AI is giving us. And now I feel like more organizations every day, they're using it more effectively. So use it for repetitive tasks, right? Like simple things that we can automate, onboarding, not of course, like the human touch of onboarding, right? But some onboarding tasks or capturing meeting minutes or, scheduling. So, okay, let's free up some time of the agenda of HR so we can really focus on sitting down with that employee, understanding really what they need, what they're struggling with, and then use that time back to kind of build on the employee experience, right? So I think it's kind of like not seeing it so much as a threat, but as a partner, and then not forgetting about the human touch, because I feel like that's going to be, with us forever, of course. And it's the most important thing. I mean, employees actually value so much more, when we're sitting with them, having a conversation and asking them how they are, rather than, those other ways, right? So I think just gain some time back to use it for the benefit of HR as well.
Absolutely. Well said, my friend. I know these kinds of things have been said, but this is affirmation. You are not being left out. But I love what you said about use this to free up time and then spend more time, fill in the blank, perhaps connecting, right? So there was some research, Quinga 2022 or 2023 came with some really great research around resistance to change and connection. And there was a high correlation between how we feel about, we always resist it based on our emotions, short-term focus, like with AI, like what's going on, we're still figuring it out, but it's going really fast. So that's kind of short-term, our past experiences, right? But connection was the biggest driver in decreasing that anxiety and resistance to change. But you're absolutely right. When you look at the generational research though too, as we keep increasing all these levels of technology, people are actually craving more actual connection. Now, are there going to be folks that are stuck behind, a phone? Absolutely, that's going to be there. But it should be like a thought partner, right? To free up some time. Okay, sometimes we get in these meetings, we have to be very concise. We don't get a human element, and we're not going to necessarily replace, but we may say, I have this idea, give me some ideas. Okay, and then you use that as a platform and jump off to then go spend more time around that connection, like you said. So super, super important. Thank you, my friend. Carol.
Yeah. Great conversation so far. I'm loving hearing from my fellow panelists, and sorry to leave you last, Ryan, but when I think about elevating the employee experience and using technology or digital tools as a lever to help you get there, I think some of the biggest opportunities for HR and for leaders are really some of the things that we've talked about, helping streamline processes that are repetitive, providing more personalized support at scale. I'm really interested in the opportunity around leveraging data and predictive analytics to help drive more insights and help you dig into identifying and being intentional about what are those human moments that really matter and where can you think about having that connection and those opportunities for HR to connect with employees, for leaders to connect directly with employees, and really create that sense of engagement and a more fulfilling experience. So how, again, thinking about data and analytics to help drive some of those meaningful conversations where they matter the most. I'm also a big believer in starting where your organization is. It can help by having a framework and consistency around how you're applying these tools and why and what use cases you're using. But not all organizations are going to be as technology ready. And so adopting for adoption's sake is not something that I recommend. I really recommend being intentional. Start where your organization is. Do your homework as an HR practitioner, understand the needs of your employees and your leaders, as well as what the organization is ready for. Make that next best step forward and continue to iterate. And that's going to give you a more future-proof solution because you're constantly iterating against the feedback loops that you're creating within the organization. So is it easy? No. Do we have tools to help enable us to get better data and insights? Absolutely. And we are all human. So if you take a step forward and it's not what the organization needs, you could scrap it and start over. Don't let perfect be the enemy of the next best step forward.
Carol, I love it. You're like, is it easy? Pause. No. And Eddie in the chat said, we spend a significant amount of time improving the employee experience while we're all in the same company. But what about when they leave? And you mentioned something right there about that feedback loop and meeting the organization where they're at. I read some interesting study and it's evolving. So I'm sure the parameters and data is going to change a bit, but it was something around 60% of organizations that have adapted AI since the Q4 of 2024. So just 3 quarters ago have already failed because yes, it's great. It's the next sexy thing. However, from the employee experience part of it, we're not ready. Also, our systems may not match. But I love when you mentioned about the data. It gives us insights. And in a meeting that I had with some leaders in the organization that I work for, I loved how there was this pop-up of a new technology, and it ran some analytics on our meeting. And you noticed that there was only a few people kind of chatting, and then there was like, oh, and then it said at the bottom, recommended feedback loop. And I was like, wow. So it made me think about what you said. So you can utilize that as saying like, we actually need more human experience, and AI is telling us this part of it. And it was a bit of that analytics, like I think you all seen that, right? Who's talking the most, and then you kind of even see the inflection in the voices and all this kind of cool stuff. So it's almost like embrace it and take time to maybe connect with somebody that you feel comfortable with, and use some low risk kind of pilots for yourself on how you can do that, perhaps. Ryan, what about you, my friend? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know how to follow such an amazing group of people and practitioners and leaders here. So I'm going to take a different approach. I'm going to talk a little bit about enhancements because I missed that little piece at the front, and then we'll talk about defining the future proofing elements of it. But Carol, you said something, and there's a term we use, and that is progress over perfection. We're all human. We all have a story. We all come with something that make us uniquely who we are, and the gifts that we contribute to whatever organization we're part of. Our philosophy and kind of where I think about these things is AI is really meant to be a way to amplify connection, not replace. I think Carolina, you had mentioned a version of that. The idea here is meeting people where they are, and I know that's like just words we're hearing now, but the idea is if you don't understand what's going on with your team, what's going on with your organization, you're not going to be successful in the overall adoption. So this is where, when you think about change management, we add so much to the organization because it's this shiny thing, it's this new thing. It's been around for a while. It's just amplified in different ways and showed up in different ways. But the idea is, how can we simplify it and shrink the change for people and build more trust and transparency on what it's really going to do? Because some folks have some natural hesitancies and some anxiety around information going into it. Who sees it? What does it do? Do you hang on to it? So the idea is not to allow it to be punitive or seen or experienced that way, but a way to amplify and enhance what folks are doing. I also think something that I don't think has been said is employee experience really needs to be and or considered to be part of the full ecosystem and connection to everything you're doing as an organization and within HR and or your people programs. And this is where it becomes a living ecosystem and not just a quote unquote program, and it's iterative. It's always in play. You're always in beta. That's a term we use, and it keeps us fresh and top of mind. And how do we keep moving forward? And I think around this, and I'll sum it up really quickly, it's really being adaptive. And it's not necessarily about content. It's about the context of what's going on with either the tools, the experiences we provide. And there's an element of designing around moments that matter. You know, someone had mentioned earlier about onboarding. Well, there's also feedback, performance. Performance isn't necessarily, when you hear performance management or feedback, it's not a bad thing. It's about growth and development. So how do you shift the mindset of folks? So I think when we look at defining the future-proofing our worlds and enhancing it, it really is allowing people to connect, provide clarity, contribute, all while feeling part of a community. And someone mentioned purpose earlier. It's in service of that purpose. And so that's blending the two, the enhancements and the definition of what I would say future-proofing our world would be.
Ryan, come on. You said how you can follow up. I think you did just fine, my friend. And then some. You amplified and the ecosystem. I love it. And then there was a word that made me think about anxiety. Okay, I won't quit my day job. I promise. I know. Horribly timed. But there was an affirmation you were saying, or right at that moment by Chris Mendoza in the chat about, you know, the being an open-minded organization though too. And that it made me think about that ecosystem that you're talking about and how that shows up day to day, in my opinion. We always talk about from the top up, grassroots. Okay, where does it come from? Where people brag about something beneath the surface and they are open to new things. For example, in a leadership meeting, I heard our CEO talk about that he was going to leadership classes because he recognized a gap and he wanted to future-proof, no pun intended, himself and then show up better for the organization. Well, then tell you what, the very next day that opened up a lot of other leaders and then their directs, and it just trickled down. It's that ecosystem that I think you're talking about, or something like that, where we start bragging about other things like our challenges and amplifying. You said amplify, but also, you know, amplifying and surfacing maybe what's not working so that we do future-proof ourselves. And we're so customer obsessed. Why can't we be employee as well, right? Because when you do that, you can't get it wrong. Let me be obsessed about our employees here, each other, right? What does it take? We all have different needs. Akishma, you had said about we have different needs, right? As we show up in that in onboarding experience or our purpose earlier. And yeah, but if you become obsessed with that, then there will be a happy median somewhere. My friends, we're almost near. We have about 10 minutes left. I can't believe this. I want to pause and have a challenge for our participants. Thank you. The challenge is connect with our panelists if you're not already. Connect with them, because I bet you they scratched the surface, got you interested, or nudged something in you that we definitely are just not getting deep enough. So please, if they're okay with it, connect with them. Connect with them if you use LinkedIn. Connect with them if you haven't already, and do that before the end of the day, before the end of this event, this experience. Nicole, I'm going to start with you, and then others can add on as we kind of near the end of this experience already. Other challenges, takeaways, actions, you know, as we look ahead in this future proofing, what's one bold move or something to believe in that maybe helps us stay relevant, human, and impactful for this what feels like constant change?
I think it's constant change, and it's actually exciting and fun as well, right? And don't let it overwhelm you. You're not too late to the party. You're just in time. And I think for my side, it will be really about making employee experience, as we call it, EX, really explicit in terms of ownership and cross-functional. It's not just your people team that needs to lead this. It's actually the whole organization. That's actually what Ryan said. So I think it's really important to actually think about, okay, what's the budget, who has the authority to actually run small experiments, and tie it into what actually Carol said, business metrics, and look at also the governance of it, the compliance of it, pilot things. And I think, again, it's all about, we're working currently in very small teams, taking touch points and thinking, okay, how can we actually improve something? It's not always about the system itself. It's about tiny little things that, for example, with offboarding, you can actually connect and see, okay, how can we actually update this and move forward with it? So I think that's kind of where I would be coming from, is, make it explicit who owns it, but also it's cross-functional. So it's not just the people team.
Woo, that was fire. And the chat is just blowing up. I just took out some words: vulnerability, sharing, creating space. Ecosystem was brought up in saying, thank you for that. Ecosystem soapbox for the past 10 years was said by Tabitha. So a lot of things coming in. Thank you, Nicole. Who else wants to add?
I'll jump in. I really appreciated what you had to say, Nicole. And Frank, something that you mentioned about your leader future-proofing himself really stuck with me. because I think, we focus a lot on the process or the technology oftentimes as we look at employee experience. But if we drill back to kind of creating those human moments and those points of connection, for me, I think what could potentially be overlooked in terms of your employee experience is training your HR team and your leadership team to effectively balance, what are we doing with these data-driven insights, and balancing that with, things like judgment and compassion and empathy. I've always been someone who wants to make sure that you're clearly articulating what it is we expect from people and people leaders. And I think an explicit part of people leaders' role right now is really to help create those moments of connection. Because as a manager, you're often that employee's experience, right? You're the majority of what they interact with and what they feel is the company on a day-to-day basis. So rather than focusing exclusively on the tools and the process, my recommendation is to focus on your people leaders and help them be set up for success by using some of those empathy, compassion, and judgment skills.
Love that.
Thank you, friend. Others.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, if I'll be really quick. I have 5, I think, quick points that could be blown out at some point. But one, as we go into this next season of our world and what we do, look at optimizing your budgets. Technology is expanding rapidly. Signing a 3-year contract or a 2-year contract is very hard right now. So you always have to be looking at how do you optimize your budget, and the technology that you do happen to bring in needs to be more agile than the one that you had. So you may be hopping systems, but always think about what you're in service of and what the purpose is. Again, you're experimenting and exploring in this next phase of where we're at. 2, I think it's part of your business strategy. It has to be at the forefront. I wouldn't call it balance. You're really looking at your people and your business together, and you need both I said earlier, to really thrive. Whatever you do needs to be adaptive to the changing business system that's happening. If your business is pivoting, what does the system and process, or what does the design look like in total? I think the key thing to sum up what we've said here is you want to build with and for the community of your organization, not for them without them being involved. And it's not an us-them thing. It's really about, it's only going to be successful. People don't argue their own data, essentially. So get folks involved. And they have great ideas, things that you wouldn't even think of because we're looking at it from one lens. We don't know necessarily the day-to-day. And Carol, the last thing I kind of connects back with what you said is, with all this technology, with all the pressure, we have to be able to scale empathy. We cannot lose that human touch of things, because that's really what's going to allow AI to help enhance us or augment whatever we do. But you need to be able to connect, coach, direct, share, curate, and that takes empathy. So,
mic drop. Okay, my friend. The notes. Luckily, I can type some too. Lakshmi, Carolina.
Yeah, if I may add, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah, you can.
You go ahead, Carolina. I'll go after you.
Okay. Yeah, so amazing things. The summary, I like it, Brian. Actually, I just wanted to grab something I was thinking about what you said. And I believe we sometimes forget, or very often we forget the business impact that employee engagement, employee retention has. If we give them, a seat at the table, if we allow them to bring their ideas, as Nicole, Brian were saying, co-creating their journey, their experience, use, technology like pulse checks, iterations to understand, what their needs are, locally, and personally, and we can bring that and create a business plan for the organization that has, their footprints. It's going to be so impactful for the business. So it's really connected, and we just need to remember that when we're talking to people leaders, to CEOs in the organization. I mean, so much impact that we can make just by, bringing their voices in, and they're going to be so grateful. They're going to be so happy. They're going to do their work so much better because basically we're, allowing them to contribute to the organization. So it's very powerful, I think. So yeah, that was what I wanted to add.
Thank you, my friend. Lakshmi.
Yeah, Frank. So a couple of things that comes to my mind when it comes to bold moves, right? One is really moving, when you're talking about enhancing employee experiences, how do you move away from the conventional way of doing things? You will have to get disruptive without disrupting the workplace and the employee experience. What I mean is, for years we've been doing performance appraisal. I know you've had very few organizations, a handful of them who've probably, looked at continuous feedback and not like the conventional, bell curve, etc. But really, we need to see with this, with the workforce, landscape changing. We really need companies, and we need a whole lot of corporates to be taking that move away from conventional. Because when you're going to align the employee experience, purpose, etc., you are going to get the employees more productive. That's one. Second thing is, I fully agree with what Ryan and Carol mentioned about empathy and keeping people leader at the center. Because, we roll out a lot of manager essential programs, effectiveness. It seems to be, I think, in many places, a check in the box. But really, how are you seeing needle movement from, how does a manager be empathetic in each and every interaction, especially when it's a virtual and a global workforce, multi-generational workforce? How does manager just move from just task orientation to deliverables to really connecting and having that personalized connect to ensure that the people in the team actually, bring their authentic self? So I think these couple of things, I don't know whether you want to call them bold. I know that few organizations have already started on that, but I think we need to see more of that, which will eventually have its impact on employee experience, is what I feel.
I'm an overwhelm, and I would double click, quadruple click on yes, it is bold to be empathetic, because in most of our organizations, even in nonprofit or for profit for sure, we're very mechanical. Be concise, be this, be that. What's the ROI? What's the bottom line? How much did you save me? How much did you make me? To be empathetic is to be bold. So I would quadruple click that. And then that resonates there, right? Then people can open up and then share what's working, what's not. And go back to what Carolina said about using your voice and speaking up. And, hopefully that there's not this survey fatigue, but really, again, it's survey inaction fatigue that happens. So take action. But you have to be empathetic, and it will show. It is a bold movement. Yes, Ryan, transactional versus transformational. My friends, I want to take a quick moment, and please, participants, give our panelists some love. Blow up the emojis, connect with them on LinkedIn, feel that energy, throw that vibe right back. Panelists, thank you so much. Give yourselves a round of applause for spending late night, early morning, middle of the day, during your personal and professional time that's so busy. The best way to predict the future is to design it. That's Buckminster Fuller. And as we wrap, remember, the future of employee experience isn't just a destination. It's a discipline. It's built moment by moment, as we've talked about, touch point by touch point, with intention, curiosity, empathy, and heart at that human experience at that center. So please, thank you all so much. Don't forget to tune in to the next Hacking HR Summit that we have. And thank you, my friends. Be well, be safe.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.